Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 146. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge in the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, this man, this creature who sings to kill us. He's the sensei of the whatnot, a duke of you-know. He murders music as sport. He records it all to savor in private, and he believes in God. Do you see? Do you comprehend? He could do anything. He could do anything he wanted to any song, all because he has a microphone. So says the listeners of the K-Tel digital recordings of the very best of Jim Sing's classic favorites of yesterday and today. Once Jim makes a song his own, no one will ever want to sing it again. Segulin.
How's it going, eh? Dude, that just kept going, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to jump in. I'm like, no, you're going, man.
We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Jim and I are going to be at the New York Comic Con, February 6th to 8th. There's a handy link on our site. Please check it out. We're going to be part of the podcast arena. That's coming up fast.
Yeah, it is. Actually, we're getting ready. We got to get ready for that.
Grant Morrison's going to be there. Jeff Johns is going to be there. There's a huge list that keeps growing and growing of people that are going to be there. And Jamal Eigel's going to be there, and Artist Alley. I saw Mike Norton's going to be there from Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Trinity. It's a big guest list that's continuing to grow all the time. So definitely when you go to their site, go to our site, click on the link up at the top. It'll take you straight there. But when you go to their site, check out the featured guests, Artist Alley, because there's a whole bunch of people in Artist Alley that aren't listed on the guest page. So you're definitely going to check that out, see if some of your favorite creators are going to be in Artist Alley. Because I was really amazed when I saw the Artist Alley list at just how many people are going to be there from all around comics.
Yeah, this is getting a nice variety as well. It's not just getting like comic creators; we're actually getting literary creators and whatnot.
Yeah,
so and it's the same. But it's all in the same genre. So who knows? There may even be author that you're actually really digging maybe there. So check it out.
Yeah, and celebrity guests and things like that it just seems to be, every time I turn around, there's somebody new being listed. I keep hoping there's a whole bunch of people that I'd like to see there, too. But they've got classic creators that are there. I know Marv Wolfman I just saw that was going to be there. Carmine Infantino is going to be there again. There's a big growing list there as well. Neil Adams will be there. We are continuing to support the Hero Initiative. Visit www.heroinitiative.org or call 310-909-7809 to support them and check them out. Hero Initiative is fantastic, and glad to be able to continue to support them. And if you click on RagingBullets.com, there's a handy-dandy link right on the front of our webpage. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. It's real interesting because this is January 1st, and Happy New Year's to everybody. DCB Service won't have up, as of today, our new listing of books yet. But that's something over the next couple of days, if you keep checking their site, you can check out the incredible discounts. For me, it's anything from monthly books to collected editions. There's a couple listeners who on various forum threads I've seen who, they like supporting their local comic shop, but they actually go to DCBService.com for all their collected editions. So, in pre-ordering them, you get an insane discount. I actually ordered for a friend of mine the Absolute for Tomorrow book because, it's 50% off. And the nice part about being able to do that is I was able to actually get him that and then another gift because of that pre-order discount. So it worked out really nice to be able to do that.
And you look like a super guy because you're getting them two nice things instead of just the one nice thing.
Yeah.
And they don't know you're just really a cheap son of a gun.
Well, I don't know that you needed to necessarily put it that way because I actually did inform him that I got it at that kind of a discount, which is why he got two things. But I really like that option to be able to then make your money extend a little bit more, especially at times being so tough and all that.
Yes, it's definitely a thank you.
Well, and comic fans are really hard to shop for the holidays because we all buy the things that we want. I had to go a little crazy for yours. I got you Marvels, the hardcover Marvels. And that was one, really the reason why I picked it, I'm like, well, you never mentioned anything. I know how much you like Alex Ross. So I'm like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer to give this one to you. Unfortunately, I didn't get to pre-order that one. Whatever your shipping preferences, your bag and boarding preferences, DCBService.com accommodates your collecting needs. Don't forget our In-Stock Trades book of the month from Mike Sims, Flash Rogues. Written by Jeff Johns, art by Scott Collins and Brian Boland. This is available on InStockTrades.com. Regularly $14.99, 47% off at $7.94. Less than $8. You can join us for this one. And it collects Flash 177 to 181. So, and you've never read any of this.
I've never read any of this. I'm really looking forward to it. And, woohoo, good pick.
We also announced on the forums, if you haven't seen it yet, episode 150. It's an anniversary episode for us. Absolute Batman The Long Halloween. It was one I knew you hadn't read. And first I'm thinking, well, it's 13 issues, it's big, it's epic, it's something like that. And Jim's flipping his Two-Face coin that he got from his Dark Knight. Why do you like that coin so much, Jim?
Well, because it just told me I can kill you. It's why I've been ever since I picked this thing up, I've been flipping the coin, and it's never given me the bad side whenever I said somebody's name. And I've tried your name a couple times, and it kept saying no. The one time you're like, yeah, it's like 15 issues. I flip it, bad side comes up. I'm like, yes, I like this coin.
It really is like 15 issues, because the first issue and the last issue, I read this monthly when it came out. So I spent the whole year reading this thing. And the first issue and the last issue were both prestige format, double-sized. So it's a big, epic. But it is, the interesting part about it is, I read the whole thing. After we announced it to each other that we're going to do this book, I read the whole thing cover to cover in 2 days. And the opening has this interesting interview with Christopher Nolan and David Goyer about how much of this influenced the Batman movies, Batman Begins and Dark Knight, thematically.
Cool.
So when you read it, you can pick up on those themes. So it'll be interesting to have that as part of our discussion when we go to discuss it. That will definitely be episode 150. And Flash Rogues will either air the episode before or the episode afterwards, depending on when we can coordinate with Mike Sims. So we want to give people a good month to be able to pick up Flash Rogues and join us. The nice part is Absolute Batman is available at InStockTrades.com. It's regularly $75, 37% off, $47.25, which is a nice savings if you're buying the Absolute. They also have the trade paperback, so if you want to go a little bit of the cheaper route on it, it's a great trade. Regularly $19.95, 37% off, only $12.57. So there's two different options on how you can join us to discuss that episode. And I think you're reading the trade, right?
Yeah.
And I'm reading the Absolute. It's no different, though. It's the same story in either or. So InStockTrades.com offers free shipping on orders over $50 and has tons of collected editions in stock and ready to ship. And I want to thank them for supporting us. They support us all through 2008, and they're here for us in 2009. So it's great. Kick off the year with InStock Trades and DCBService.com. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in a plotline, story twist, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
On this episode, Jim and I are going to be discussing the JSA specials, the ones that we're tying into the Kingdom. We also have a pretty hefty speeding bullet segment, so make sure you take a look at the show notes and make sure we're not spoiling anything for you. We also got into some listener voicemails. With the time when you were on vacation, Jim, we piled up on some voicemails. So for the next couple episodes, we're going to have some pretty nice voicemail segments where we get to chat about some of the things that listeners want to chat about. So we're going to be getting all of those in, so keep them coming. We love you guys participating in our voicemail segment. And that voicemail number again is 1-440-388-4434. That's 440-388-4434. Or on Skype, just Dr. Norge, DRNORGE. So you can definitely join us on Skype for free. So either of those ways takes you to the same voicemail box, and we would love to have you part of the show. Jim, for the Speeding Bullet segment, I wanted to kick off with a book that just really blew me away. Batman 683. It's the second part of the epilogue to R.I.P., and there's the connection to Final Crisis. The art was by Lee Garbett and Trevor Scott, with colors by Guy Major, and the artwork was really spectacular. There was a lot of nods to different eras of Batman, particularly the 70s era Batman, and I thought really they captured a lot of the Neil Adams, Jim Aparo style in some of their presentation there, which really worked for me. The narration from the clone, and how he played off of Bruce was something that really, as it started to grow, he started off very adversarial to Bruce. And then partway through, there was this twist and change because Bruce's memories started to become more and more a part of him, and Batman was actually able to reason with him. And in many ways, the clone kind of kept Bruce coherent and lucid, because there was these false memories of, it was like heartwarming, this glimpse into a normal life for Bruce, following in his dad's footsteps, which would have meant the brutal death for Dick Grayson and Jim Gordon, and that was almost like Bruce's mind fighting against it, turning this beautiful thing into a tragedy.
It's a protection for him, and and I love that. I was like sitting there reading, and I was digging it. I recall the one Batman animated series where the one robot system was making robot duplicates of everyone, and made the one duplicate of Batman, but it made it too good.
Right.
It actually fought against and fought for truth and justice and whatnot. So it was
that connection
I ate that up.
I totally ate it up because I think it's important to see that Batman has changed the lives of those around him for the better, even though he's in a very dark world. And a lot of times we forget that this guy has accomplished a lot of good and really affected a positive change in a lot of people. It's just that Gotham is so corrupt and so dark that you keep getting that image that like there hasn't been so much forward movement. I think Bruce kind of reached out to this clone because I liked how we got to see Darkseid's minions scrambling, saying he's aware of us. He's aware of what's going on here because he started to become aware of that and alert, and that became a problem for them because he started reacting to it internally, and that was really great for me. This covered a ton of history from Batman, from his origins, last issue, R.I.P., Kathy Kane, Robin, Jason Todd's death, the feelings of rage against the Joker for that death, and Barbara as well. And I liked how they were using these and initiating these different moments as ways to capture the extremes of his personality, because those extremes are the things that they wanted to harness to make these perfect soldiers. And Tim finding out his secret, Ra's al Ghul. The epilogue to R.I.P. really worked for me because we got to see that Bruce escaped the copter, which we all knew was going to happen, but I was glad we got to see it so...
Right.
Right. And the moments with Alfred in the real world there, and this was a great line, or a great segment for me. Hurt said to give up, join him, or the next case would be my last. Those bits worked for me. I'm wondering if Hurt was connected with or knew it was coming in Final Crisis. I'm not sure on that. But he clearly, was foreshadowing that there's something very dark coming for Batman. And it is interesting that if Bruce had made the choice to join Dr. Hurt, he probably would have wound up on a different side of the Final Crisis battle, and in many ways been approached perhaps by Libra.
Oh, definitely. And I don't know if he even approached by Libra. He would have voluntarily given over to Darkseid. And I don't even know, would he have been such a use to Darkseid if he had just given in? Because part of the thing that they wanted from Batman was his strategy, his mind, his discipline, all these things that would make just this perfect soldier. And if they had a broken Batman, if they had a Batman who had given up and who had surrendered, they wouldn't have had those same type of elements.
I don't think Lieber was talking about... in that case, I was thinking about Bruce choosing to join Hurt. At that point, not being broken, because at that point he'd already recovered. So Hurt was appealing to him. Well, although he would have been succumbing to blackmail, which would have been a problem as well. So that adds a lot of weight to what you're saying. So it would have been a weakened man. You're right. Alfred being the manifestation of the clone really worked for me. Bruce started to realize the chance to connect with this mind. And those were, like, the whole journey from adversary to understanding and the goal of absorbing Bruce's memories to become this weapon. What happens when the clone becomes too close to the original, like you said with that? And that was really great. I like how Bruce was using his memories like a weapon, and they were freaking out over that.
Well, it's kind of cool to see a normal, everyday person. Yeah, granted, he's super disciplined and he's studied and he's trained for this, but he is just a normal person, able to go toe-to-toe with gods and able to go toe-to-toe with this advanced technology. And it is just based solely on the strength of will, the strength of human character, hope. All these basic, these ideologies that, Darkseid is trying to crush in with the anti-life equation, in with everything they're doing to take over. But we're seeing exactly this is how you fight Darkseid. Well, with willpower, with strength of character, with determination, and all the positive stuff, along with all the negative stuff that are inside the human body, heart and soul and whatnot.
And I do like the fact when you say toe-to-toe, the clarification there is he's not going toe-to-toe with them on the battlefield traditionally. He's going toe-to-toe with them by finding little openings, finding that little spot, that little give. Because they had this great segment at the end. The whereabouts of Batman remain unknown, and yet I can see him now in the grips of implacable, innumerable foes, somewhere without hope, in a place where all seems lost, and I know this. The enemy will look away for just a moment, underestimating him for that single fraction of a second too long. And no matter how dark the night, there will be no hiding place for evil. And you see him standing there in that one brilliant segment. It was just, the art piece right there just it grasped me. But that's the part where it works for me so well. He's standing toe-to-toe with gods just in the sense that he's finding hope in a hopeless situation, finding that it's that human spirit, that part that we have where, that at our best, we find a way to claw ourselves back up. you find, you grasp at that one little tether, that one little string, and you find your way to claw your way out of it. And he found that. He used their weapon against them. So it was interesting to have that moment and to see that.
Every chink of armor, every armor has a little, chink or a kink in it that, it's got one vulnerable spot. And all you got to do is just have the right person who knows how to fire, how to do whatever they got to do to find that weakness, and that's Batman. He's the strategist. He is, the battlefield assessment. And tell you, if you're in the middle of a fight and you're going toe to toe and you're getting beaten, all of a sudden you just see, out of the shadows swinging in Batman, that's just going to give you that hoorah, win one for the Gipper type of attitude. Just seeing Batman there, you're like, okay, the tide of battle has just turned now. We got a shot. And he's just a normal guy, just like you and me, but he is Batman. And there is just that inspirational side to him that, granted, there's a lot of heroes, they always make comments about, how he scares them, and he instills fear in some of the heroes who don't know him, but they all will turn to him. They all will look to him for leadership. And that's just the thing about him. And
the part where the clone was fighting against him, and trying to break his spirit by showing him and putting him through the worst, the breaking of the back by Bane, for example. You take this guy and you put him in the moments where a normal person would be crushed, and he clawed his way back up through those things. Found a way to continue. Even when his back was broken, he was in the wheelchair, and there were two great issues of Justice League International, where he went Justice League Task Force, where he went with that team, a team of them, over after Chandra Kinsolving. He's in a wheelchair, very similar to what works for Oracle. This guy is still active as Bruce Wayne in the wheelchair, going after this woman who helped him to survive. And, to the point where he fell in love with this woman and was actually willing to give up being Batman for this woman. But that strength of character that Batman would still go on, even crushed like that, that clone just did clearly not understand who he was dealing with and what memories he was bringing about. He actually, in many ways, gave Bruce the drive to continue on by putting him through the worst of his moments.
He played the Rocky music for him. Mm-hmm. He showed him, here's you at your worst, and all Bruce had to do is just start thinking about yes, that was his worst, but he fought through that. He clawed through that, physical therapy, all that type of stuff that he had to go through. And that was Rocky music that was being played in his head.
The worst moments of emotional and physical heartbreak that he went through, they put him through there, and he yet still managed to, find inspiration in those moments. Hey, if I beat this, I can beat these guys. And so, I liked that. It was really just one of those, ugh. And I liked that everything, because there was a lot of people who were concerned that R.I.P. was going to happen in Bruce's mind, and I'm so glad that it turned out to be an event that did, in fact, happen. And that this was something, everything that we've seen led up to Final Crisis, where he was analyzing the bullet for the JLA, and that's where we leave him off, and it plugs him right into Final Crisis. I'm glad that it flowed so nicely right into that. I'm anxious to see issue 6 of Final Crisis. I'm terrified to see issue 6 of Final Crisis, because, it says, the last battle of Batman. And I'm like,
yeah. You know what? It's funny because I'm the guy who said I want to see the heroes grow old and I want to see somebody else wear the cowl and all that stuff. And the more we talk about Bruce, the more I'm like, I don't want it anymore. Can you make it not happen?
I know.
I know. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if it's... Yeah, because...
I'm very excited for Battle of the Cowl. I'm very excited to see where this goes. I want Bruce.
Yeah.
It's my number one choice underneath that mask. I don't mind if, there's a route to get there, but I want to see Bruce back under that mask. So that's my ultimate goal. I wanted to talk real quickly about Wonder Woman number 27. Diana is a sister to both Donna and Cassie, which added power to this moment because, we saw her broken at the end of last issue. And they know this is bad but have to be strong, not only out of respect for the Wonder Woman legacy, but her person and what she stands for. They can't let weakness be shown there because, publicly there's this persona and she's a symbol and they're respecting the symbol. And I like that. I liked that moment. The Secret of Diana's Lasso continues to captivate me. I'm glad that Gale has chosen to give us some more depth to this iconic weapon. The more her storylines progress, the more we learn there's more to the lasso than we ever knew.
And that was the thing that when they first started doing it, I went back and you read the the previous arc, the fantasy arc where she's basically sucked into the lasso, and they did all that stuff. Where I love those issues now even more now, because I'm like, she's laying the groundwork that the lasso is more than just something that makes people tell the truth. There's something beyond what we've always thought of. So it was like that was the initial tease, and now we're starting to get it fleshed out. And I think even when this is done, there's still going to be some question as to what is the lasso. But just opening up the question, like, what's going on here?
Well, the lasso is more than a tool; it's a responsibility. And the fact that she has it is a show of respect into her abilities. So that this being taken is very terrifying, because something that she has been responsible for that can be a very terrifying weapon is now in the hands of Genocide. And Genocide, obviously knows a lot more about the lasso and its capabilities. It's this concept that Genocide's a god or has a god inside Genocide, which is something I've read in different forums. People are speculating that there's a god inside Genocide. I'm comfortable with either that or that Genocide on its own is a god that's been, kind of crafted by these people. I don't know which it is at the moment. I'm kind of enjoying the mystery to Genocide still. But Genocide clearly knows the lasso has properties that is going to make Genocide, who's already a terrifying weapon in and of itself, even more powerful. Our evil Pat. Now looks even... Yeah. Has a rather elastic waistband crafted into it.
Well, that was actually a kind of a creepy thing. You think about it, it was like stitched and went up and down the spine.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like it's throughout Pat. So it's not, just there. It's grafted and whatnot. I'm like,
He is androgyny. Genocide's Pat. Genocide clearly does have breasts, though. I mean, I saw it in this issue. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't. It's still, we got that androgynous thing going on with. Genocide won't allow the scientists to analyze the lasso, and I liked that too. They didn't even Genocide told them, I want this a part of me, and they didn't even budge on that. Normally scientists would find some wicked way to pull one over on Genocide because it's that thirst for knowledge. A lot of your scientists, it's one of the reasons why sometimes Morrow, for example, worked so well in 52, looking almost like a good guy for part of the time. It's because of the fact that their thirst for knowledge, if you've got that kind of common ground with them, they can seem very rational and sane people, mad scientists. But then once there's some twisted little thing that they want to get their hands on, they will go to all lengths. It's where the mad scientist really works as a psychological character if you really want to play with them.
It's funny because you're saying, they didn't try to pull one over on Genocide. Would you?
No. But that's
I was
what I'm saying.
No? Okay, whatever you want, done.
The sense of disgust and dread on Evil Pat really worked for me. They seem to be so mortified around her. I'm like, yes, this works. The JLA battle with Genocide.
Oh, I've never heard a Green Lantern scream like that.
Yeah, but
that's a line.
That worked for me. How Genocide infected John really influenced what I think happened to Diana from Genocide. Genocide internally did a lot of this as well as externally. So that was great to see those moments because it further clarified for me Genocide has this powerful, overwhelming effect. The segments with the gods were quite interesting. They don't quite remember everything, is what I gathered from that.
Well, they're losing their powers, because they get their powers based on worship. So if they have no one worshiping them, or only one person loyally worshiping them, or even their champion now has one been defeated in battle, but two isn't even acknowledging them because she's wearing the Shell Dudes, monarchy on her. So it's
almost like they're starting Olympics from ground zero.
Yeah.
And really trying to rebuild. I think we're gonna see a very new Olympus come out of this, which is cool. Athena even just seems to be a glimpse of her former life and glory. I'm hoping we don't see the death of Athena because I like her.
Yeah,
but I can definitely see a reason why, motivation wise, she's either dying or she's going very low at the moment.
Well, right now she's dying. So
right.
Who knows if something can give her a spark back to bring her back, then we'll see what happens.
Right. Zeus feels guilt over abandoning them, and I think he looks at them as wanting to end their struggle, the Amazons, and have some peace, which isn't necessarily the case. I don't think he's still trying to connect with them and understand them based on Athena's wishes, but I don't think he gets them at all. Because, they would not want in any way, shape, or form to be put on the shelf. They would want to, their whole warrior code, their whole culture revolves around them being the people that they were on Themyscira. So that you're taking away their purpose from them with what he's planning for them. Which I do think he genuinely has noble purposes there. In that he thinks he's like, well, I'm going to give you your sense of rest. You've done so much for us, and we have basically abandoned you and not been there for you. And he doesn't quite understand or get it.
Yeah, they just want to know. They just want to be the Amazons again.
Mm-hmm. They want to be, they would want to be, I think, fully restored. So he does. I love the moments where he started waking them up. Where they were being called back, and
that was
particularly the one with the husband and the wife.
Yeah.
Now imagine that. You start a whole life for yourself for a year. Not start. You basically think you're somebody else and you get marry somebody and all that. Then all of a sudden, bam, you wake up and realize all of that was a lie and you were somebody else. How would that work?
So that's what happened to all my exes. They were Amazons, they were woken, and then that's why they all said, see ya, and left. Oh, okay. It now makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And here's something I kind of have a theory that just popped in my head when I was reading this last issue, especially because when we see Donna pick up Diana and go to leave, and Tom's like, "No, I'm coming with you. I'm one of you now. I am an Amazon." And I was like, that's kind of cool that he's stepping up and he is an Amazon and he is accepted by Hippolyta. But the thought that flashed in my head is, what if he becomes the Olympian? We're talking the rise of the Olympian. What if Tom, because he's one of them, and he goes back with them, and he gives, the gods a purpose, gives them a vessel to use or something like that. And he gets the power in him. One that's multiple folded that you can go with, because what would happen with his relationship with Diana? Would he still be him, or would he be this other entity?
I never even saw that as a possibility.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know. I
don't know either. So I'm just. This is one of those things where I'm just like, maybe.
I guess I read it as Tom going along with her as support because he is so interconnected with her. But
that's how I read it as well. But I'm wondering if
different possibility.
What if at the point of time when the gods are about to die and he sees us saying, "Hey, hold on, right here is your entity." Do you take it
that all the gods are about that? I'm not reading it that way at all. I'm reading that Athena, because her entire Amazon race that she was connected with seems to have crumbled, and her champion's falling, that her heart's breaking, and that's why she's crumbling. I did not take it that the rest of the gods were in that state.
I take it they all are starting to.
I don't take it that way at all.
They're deteriorating because they're starting to lose their own personal memories. They're starting to forget who and who is what and whatnot. So they're starting the deterioration. The reason Athena took the biggest hit was because Diana's down. Because there are no of her Amazons. There's no more warriors that are worshiping, the goddess of war and wisdom. So it just
put her in a state of despair?
Yeah, it hurt her the most because she was getting the most from them and she was giving them the most.
It's an intriguing mystery for me. I can see that it's funny. I can see that possibility too. That's what I like about this. There's a lot of options and possibilities. Like the Olympian right now, I'm assuming that this is going to be the gods' reaction to the fact that they're taking the Amazons off of the table and giving them this kind of paradise away from all of it. And the Olympians are going to be the replacements and the gods' ways to kind of reinvigorate themselves. It's their reaction to the fact that they're in this state. So,
I don't know.
That's kind of my way. Zeus's way of taking care of the Amazons is the way that he thinks is best at the moment, but not necessarily what Athena or the Amazons would really want. I can't see Diana being okay with this.
Yeah, see, and that's, if that's the way it rolls out, that'll be cool, too. These are all just, Well,
but what's interesting, though, is if that happens, and all that could happen within the frame of what you're talking about, there's interesting possibilities on what events happen will drive the reactions of Diana, Hippolyta, the Amazons, and that's the part where I'm just like, ooh, I'm intrigued by the whole thing.
Yeah, so on top of dealing with Super Pat, she's also got to deal with these other stuff.
Super Pat.
And plus...
Super Pat makes her sound too kind. It's Evil Pat to me.
Evil Pat. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, Evil Pat, Super Pat, genocide, whatever you want to call it. Plus, also though, the Department of Metahuman Affairs. What's going on there with that Sergeant Steele? I'm like,
well, that's a question. Do you think Steele is being influenced by an outside force?
Yeah. At first, I didn't, and at first I took it as. He's always the first name that pops in my head. So, especially when you're dealing with Diana.
And war. Steele's clearly ready to go to battle. And if Steele's going to go to battle, what happens when the Amazons are taken off the table and the Olympians are brought in? How is Steele going to react to the Olympians?
Yeah, if he is influenced by Ares, and Ares isn't in the mix, then he's probably going to be a little bit miffed. So,
or is Steele going to be more welcoming to the Olympians and be a part of it? Could Steele be the Olympian?
Steel could be the Olympian. Steel could very easily be the Olympian. Inside him it's festering and growing. Yeah, because there's definitely something off the table with him. There's something outside of his normal operation going on. And, especially seeing him shoot the one guy, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay, he's now off. He's off the reservation. There's something going on.
He's out to lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the mystery right now. I don't want all the answers right now. It's a storyline that's building. The JLA battle with Genocide, though, and Firestorm's reaction to the whole thing was...
And you think about when the JLA or JLI or whichever version of it was that fought Doomsday, how messed up they got fighting him. Very comparable we're seeing with the power levels of Genocide, so I like that.
It's funny, Diana's one of those characters. I've read Diana really through this entire run, almost every issue. I'm sorry, not this. I keep connecting this one with the Perez run. I've read this entire run, obviously. I read the whole Perez, from where Perez kicked it off straight on till the end. And it's funny that this is a character who, I run hot and cold. And I don't want to say even cold. I run hot and kind of, I'm enjoying her. But right now, I'm very Diana happy.
Yes.
And that does carry over to books like Trinity, where I just think right now Diana's a very cool character in the DC Universe. When we talk about JSA, my enjoyment of some of the specials in JSA, the Kingdom Special and all that, come from Diana. When she makes an appearance in there, was part of it as well. I thought she was very well handled in that. It's very much the Diana we're reading in this was very much in those JSA specials.
I know, and same thing like with when they run her in JLA as well. It's this is that we have a constant Diana we're seeing throughout all of the different titles. Whenever she makes an appearance, she's got that same style and form to her. So,
but it's very cool because I think what's successful about her right now is not even just her intense strength, but her weaknesses and her willingness to address them. She's a very likable character right now. And that's what I think is working for me so much, in the sense that I really like her. I don't feel like sometimes Diana's written in such a way that you can't connect with her in any way, shape, or form. I can very easily connect with and enjoy this Diana. This is a very cool Diana. So that's what I like about her, in the sense that you feel like you could have a conversation with her. I get that from Soups too. It's kind of a neat vibe.
Now, do you like her or do you like her?
I like her.
Oh, okay.
I don't like her.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to date with her. If that's what you're talking about.
Hey, I'm just saying, just wanted to know, make sure.
Yeah. I haven't wanted to date a cartoon character since Daphne from Scooby-Doo. But honestly, if she was a real person, very much the way she's being written now and presented, she's someone that's very engaging and very likable in that sense. And I could see she's someone, if you saw her on television, like every guy would be, including myself, would be gaga over her. She would be very majestic and very... So, I mean, if you're going off of that end, she is being written in such a way right now that you could totally get the vibe, not just from looks, personality. Very few people would have a bad thing to say about her.
And if anybody wants to create a Sean on a date with Daphne from Scooby-Doo, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. And Jim's dates forgetting about him. You went there.
Yeah. You think after 20 plus years I would learn,
Let's go and consider Gail Simone's love, because Wonder Woman 27 was great, but Secret Six #4. This continues to be my favorite book. It's just awesome. What if? That's all it takes to make the Get Out of Hell free card the most sought-after item by Junior in the villain community. And I like this even more than 100% verification that it works. How would they know that it works? There's only one. Of course it doesn't matter that they know that it works. It's what if it works. And there's enough of that for villains, and I'm telling you, your worst villains, to say, wait a minute. And it fits with the 6 right now. This becomes trouble with any villain group. There's only one card. It's not, you can't hold hands and all of a sudden it works for everybody. Doesn't work that way. There's one card. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. People are going to fight over this card. I'm wondering if we're going to see the 6 fight over it, or,
We've already started seeing a little mistrust and, kind of going through some dissension among the ranks, which was a great scene, just, as, Catman is just giving it to Scandal, and chunk, in walks Bane. You will speak with respect. I was like, oh. Mm-hmm.
The funny part is I kept going through, what would members of the 6 do with the card? Bane, almost on his end, I could see Bane destroying the card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. For the betterment of the team.
Oh yeah, and it
Just because of his own way of, he's like not trying to take the easy way out of anything. The easy way out for him right now would be to take Venom and play Bane up, and he's avoided doing that in any situation, which fits, that he's trying to mentally and psychologically overcome. I really like that about him. He's interesting in this. I'm really, it's more of the Bane it's the Bane that took down Batman is what we're seeing right now, to a certain extent, without the drug problem.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit variations on that, and I'm liking that, we've seen a growth and evolution of the character. There is still, as we said, there is still that same person who is not just a mindless brute. There is more to him. Plus, there's a growth in the person that is him. He's, I don't know, I don't want to say he's actually good now, but he's not.
No, he's clearly not.
Yeah.
He's with them. He's with this group. That in itself says you're clearly not a good guy.
Well, yeah,
he's a mercenary.
Yeah, but at first I was thinking maybe Bane was joining the group to try to maybe use the group, but I don't see that now. I actually see him. I don't know what his purpose or what he's doing there yet, but there's something more to his story.
I don't want to know it now, though. I mean, I want to find it out gradually, because there's something compelling about him, too. Scandal sees it. When she gives in to put her head on his lap, she comes back with the snide comment, which would fit, about you're just like every other male and that type of thing. But she also realizes that's a very calm, like she's trying to get a rise out of him. She's trying to get him to crack that exterior that he's been putting up, and she starts to realize, this dude's for real.
Yeah, he's protective of her.
Yeah.
And he's, it's...
I like it.
Yeah.
It's very compelling. It's very interesting. Now, you're right. Could it all be a ruse? Maybe. Maybe not. I like either possibility.
Yeah, see, when he first started, I was thinking ruse. Now I'm not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, now I think there's been a change change of character in him. Like how in the beginning of the book we talked about Catman. Is he? He's one of those walks a line between good and evil. Kind of type of guy. I think Bane is now showing us he's more of that character, where he's associated with villains, but he really isn't a villain now. And that's why.
I think in this group it looks that way, but I think there's clearly actions we've seen from him with the group that shows that he's clearly willing to help the group for their goals. So they're villainous actions in the sense that he's with this group. He's a mercenary for hire, which is an interesting distinction compared to other characters within the group. His motivations would be all of their motivations for being there are different. Like, not one of them is cookie cutter to the rest, so I do like he's got a different flavor. I don't 100% trust him, though. That's what I really like. Because I like what you said. I don't get the, even if he is 100% on the level with how he is with Scandal, I still don't trust him, because part of it still feels creepy uncle, creepy older brother, but then I'm like, well, what if he's legit? So there is that kind of part of me that's, creeped out and yet not. So, you want him to be legit because you want to root for him that way, but I don't know.
Yeah, It's a
But in the face of, when you've got a ragdoll who's the ultimate in deviation, right over there next to him, of course...
and Deadshot, that's a pure mercenary.
Right. So, I mean, in comparison to them, he looks very different, which is what's nice about this group, and they add this, really weird, quirky flavor to the whole thing, which I like. The concept that Junior fears God as motivation for wanting the card added to the whole reconciliation scene at the church. Of course, the fact that he goes there in a potato sack and in an old beater because he sees himself as ugly was hysterical. Do you think when he flies, he takes, AirTran at a pet carrier?
I don't know.
Sorry, I can't be in, coach. You got to put me in the back because I'm ugly. And don't put me by those show dogs.
Well, at least he'll have an inbound
I'm not
meal.
pretty as a poodle. Must be interesting booking things for him. Hello, Hertz? Yeah, what's the worst car that you have? And also, could you have a potato sack ready for us? We don't need the GPS. It's a little too cushy. How about a ratty map? Just such a bizarre guy. That's what I love about it. The more we learn about this freak...
There's still more going, huh?
He's one of my favorite characters in the book. Oh, yeah. I literally would probably follow a Junior solo series.
Oh, God, yeah. Because that'd just be weird.
The Wicked Misadventures of Junior? I would read that monthly. He is a freaky dude. I don't know what that says about me.
Oh, I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It speaks volumes here, too. Yeah. As I scoot away a little bit farther from you.
Yeah, but you'd read it too.
Yeah, I would.
The church moments were very powerful for me. It worked for me on a ton of levels. A priest's job is to absolve sins, but he also has to genuinely believe that the man is showing remorse and wants to change his ways. When the priest denies him after being told that Junior killed, raped, tortured, etc., in such a hostile environment, remember the two thugs push him into the seat. Junior admitted he's not remorseful, he's not repenting. He has to look at that moment and say, this is my belief. If I tell this man he's forgiven, I'm going against those beliefs. He's sinning in many ways to his own promises. That is his promise. He is a religious leader. And in the concept, he is God's hand on earth. He's the one that, he has the power to absolve for God at that point. A priest would forgive if the person was truly repenting. Because Junior isn't looking for that, he wants his sin cleared so he can join, really sin more. He wants to go back and sin some more. Hey, clear these off the table and let me bid up a whole new batch and I'll come back a few years from now and let's clean it up that way. The power of that moment worked for me because Junior's trying to find, if he can't get the card, another option.
Yeah, he's trying to find his plan B. And I tell you, I absolutely just loved this scene because there was so much, Catholic priests, Catholics in general, are a lot of cannon fodder to a lot of people because we've got a lot of people who have done some bad things. There are some priests out there who have done horrific things. Mm-hmm. And, you can't deny that they did it and you can't deny that it's horrific. And unfortunately, everyone seems to focus solely on that when they talk about Catholics.
That's kind of where our society is in general right now, though. I don't think it's just on the Catholic religion. I think it's religion in general. I think it's media in general. The focus is on the negative. It's what people want to read about. We want to find the worst things. I mean, think about if you go to forums, and the typical reaction to any news on forums nowadays is people come back right away with the most awful negative comments right from the get-go.
Right.
Nobody tries to even find the positive in anything anymore.
Yeah, well.
I'm not saying nobody. That's pretty harsh, but I mean, that tends to be, we're kind of groomed to have that kind of negative reaction to everything because our media is very negative.
Yeah, and once again, yeah, I agree with you. There is so much negativity out there, and that's why I love this scene so much because it gave him such a quiet power, but it also gave him, this right here was a true man of God. He's not just going to lay down, he's not just going to do whatever it is to save his life, he stuck to his beliefs. But at the moment of death, not only did he have that moment of peace where he's holding up his crucifix, he's had that moment of peace in his life. He forgave Junior for killing himself.
Right, and that was all he forgave him for, too, which is very key. Yeah.
I love that because this is a true man of God. Mm-hmm. He is that forgiveness. He is that benevolence, and that is what a true priest is. They are a guide. They're your shepherd.
They are his belief, and it shows right there that it wasn't just a show for when Junior was there. He really believed to this point, hey, you know what? I am going to come into my faith. This man has told me he's going to kill me. I'm going to forgive him for that because that's what I do, and that's who I am, and I'm going to he crushes that cross almost like a safety net. I know what's going to happen to me here. Something good is going to come of that for me because I totally put my belief in this. And I think it's one of those things, whatever religion you believe in, I think everyone wants confidence that there are some strong religious leaders out there, whatever religion. I can go through any type of, we all are different in what we believe in. Even, Christian beliefs and all that have various variations. But going beyond that, Jewish faith, Buddhist faith, whatever, you can go all throughout history. Let's be honest. The Catholics, like you said, it's a press nightmare. It's the reason why there's a lot of, church consolidation. You're not seeing people go into the priesthood anymore. There's a lack of confidence right now. It does me good to see stories about this, like any religion. I like seeing positive religious stories about any, where we see that there are religious leaders out there who really take their role to heart and stand by their beliefs. You're right, there's a negative too, very strong negative. We see a ton of that, but it's nice to see stories where you see that there is another side of the story. There are people who really do believe in this. There are people who are true leaders that inspire. This guy's story, it was a very inspirational ending to this guy. It really was. I really liked it. And I think in many ways this story can be applied to a variety of faiths because of that. Because I think we all have known, any of us who have religious beliefs, some people don't, and that's fine as well. Whatever your personal beliefs are, you have those people that you connect with, whether it's a family member, it's a true religious leader, like there's somebody who's really done that. There's somebody who you identify with for that purpose. And it's good to see somebody here, showing that this person in the light of this very twisted individual.
Yeah.
It was a very positive portrayal and very dramatic in such a twisted sequence.
I know.
It worked for me.
There's a positive spin to the brutal murder of a priest. All right.
It really was, though. He stood his ground, and I love
Yeah.
But I liked, though, it wasn't because the priest won. It wasn't like God's hand came down and struck Junior aside and that type of... Sometimes a heroic act, or sometimes a heroic act in that case. This guy was very heroic because he made the choice to stand behind his beliefs and to give full confidence and trust in those beliefs in his darkest moment, knowing he was going to die. That's very heroic. And it's inspirational, and people can be inspired by that. That was a heroic act. I liked that. I liked that it wasn't, the Spectre didn't come in, or Mercy, characters that we're seeing, like in Final Crisis, for example, that are, God's hand and power. It was interesting to see this portrayed this way, where, the Secret Six didn't come in and save this guy or anything. I'm glad that it went down this way, because in many ways it was more dramatic because it went down like this, and we got to see an act of heroism from the priest. In the light of that, the two thugs saying that they were formerly Catholic, but no more.
It kind of threw that one out.
Yeah, it's a book that to me it's very twisted, it's very bizarre, and every month I'm just glued to it. Green Arrow Black Canary number 15. Did you read the first issue of that? I don't want to go too crazy into it, and there's a reason why. I've been talking with colorist David Barron, and we're working to find a time to have him on the show. He's the colorist of Green Arrow Black Canary, and we're going to have him come on. It's probably going to be the episode after the Raging Oscars, and what I was thinking of, we could do a cover-to-cover on issue 16. We'll probably talk with him about 15 and the issues before, and some of it, he did the color on Superman Beyond 3D, for example. Just a whole bunch of things he's doing color work on, and we're going to talk about that. But I do want to focus on his work on Green Arrow Black Canary, because there's been a dramatic tone shift with issue 15. The artwork's changed, same art team, same coloring team, but there's been a really dramatic art shift to show the new tone with the new writing. And I really enjoyed issue 15 so far, so I'm anxious to talk about this because there's a big shift. How did you feel? It's like Team Arrow has changed. Is that something? I liked how this issue was really focused on the new status quo change. How did you like that so far? Because there's a lot more focus on the relationship of Dinah and Ollie now. And I know you were a huge Team Arrow fan. So how are you enjoying it so far?
Well, it's interesting because it's going to be hard for me not to go too much detail, but there are some stuff that I was like, no, don't do this, please, dear God. And then I was like, yes, this is awesome. So I really swung through an emotional roller coaster.
And it's a hard issue to make a decision on.
Part of it was the disbanding of Team Arrow, but seeing where they're going with the character, seeing where he's going with Dinah and Ollie, I was like, okay, I like this. And I enjoy this. And they didn't completely close the door. They kind of like sidestep. So maybe we could get Team Arrow come back. So it's...
Or, story arcs where they would fit into the story or they could be a part of it. I do like that they didn't ignore what Winnick did previously with Team Arrow, and that there was a nice epilogue to that. Like, they didn't just go to saying basically they're gone and never showed anything. They actually went through a pretty dramatic sequence.
Departure and stuff like that, yeah.
Because they could have done that in a panel, and to me, that would have been a major disappointment. I was glad to see that they...
You meant the bows and arrows, right? That scene, I howled. Yeah. I howled out loud. And it was where, because at first I was upset, with stuff leading up to that, and then I get to that scene and I howl. I'm like, oh, okay. This guy gets these people. He gets the sense of humor.
That's what really worked for me.
And just like the final panel, that final page, when we see what happens, I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. So it's that, leading up to future stories.
I think it's one of the reasons why I'm glad that this worked out time-wise. We're going to talk with David about the color work on the book, but then you and I can really talk cover to cover about issue 16, because I think we're going to get a better feel with issue 16, because 15 was an interesting issue in the sense it was a part epilogue, part laying the framework for what this is going to look like. I think really 16 is where we're going to get a real vibe for what this feels like beyond. So I think this worked out really well that we're going to be doing 16.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that'll be an interesting discussion point, is how do we feel about this change. I really enjoyed 15 in a way that because I walked in thinking to myself, they're getting rid of Team Arrow. I'm not going to be happy with that. And I found a lot to like.
Yeah, and as I said, it was a roller coaster. There were moments where I was like, no, and then I'm like, yes, this is, so it's still the same characters, still the same story, just different players in the game now.
I think it's fun to talk about.
Okay.
It's a major status quo change, so I think it's something that'll be fun to talk about as we get into 16, because I think we'll have a better flavor for what that status quo change is really going to feel like in theme, and that's going to be cool. So you're right, though. I chuckled at the moment.
Yeah.
Birds of Prey, issues 123 to 125 I reread. It's been one of those books that's interesting. I was a little bit behind on the book, and I didn't realize it. I hadn't read it since 123, because I started reading 125, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? I didn't realize I never read 124. So I went back to I jumped all the way back to 123, and I just read those 3 issues together. And these were enjoyable issues. They tied up the Platinum Flax arc and sent us on an interesting story with the Calculator, the Joker, and the battle for the Syndicate. I do like that the crazy Joker took a while to click, that it was Barbara, but then some random moments where his attention span caught on to something that made him remember Barbara Gordon.
He's like, hey,
wait a minute.
I know her.
Yeah.
Let's go pay a visit.
It was after that whole thing where she pulled one over on him that he was like, wait a minute. And it really was. It fits the Joker that it wouldn't be the way we would normally click. It's like when you're trying to remember the artist who sings a song, and you know it, it's on the tip of your tongue. He had one of those moments and then drove back.
Well, he didn't want to be rude now, did he? Come on.
Oh, no. And you don't want to be
You see
rude.
an old friend you haven't seen for a while, you got to go up and just give her a nice big old hug.
The drama, the after effects of the Joker being able to have power over her, her frustration with the chair, really worked for me. She wants and needs to be able to take that power that he has over her, and that's something that she wants to take back from him. I'm glad she had that moment of revenge with the teeth, just that hoorah moment. But I like that this wasn't a moment that, like, one issue she had this battle where she beat the Joker. It's far more interesting to me that she survived.
And there's still the scars there. And
yes,
no matter how much you try to work through something and you deal with it, it's there's still those shadows there. There's still those things that haunt you in your mind. And it's you see this type of stuff with anyone who's been through some traumatic event. The rape, pedophile, stuff like that, where years down the line you're living this normal, happy life, and one thing just triggers it. She's Oracle. She is this super badass that is just this great female superhero who's doing a lot of good for people. And it only took the one encounter with Joker to bring back that injured, weakened, scared Barbara Gordon.
It's interesting that, because I've been with this since the original miniseries before even issue 1 kicked off. And it's interesting that they're bookending this afterwards. The Chuck Dixon stuff way in the beginning was Dinah and Barbara.
Yeah.
And they'd have guests who would team up with them, but it was really Birds of Prey was Dinah and Barbara. And to see them together now after all this time, and how Dinah can read her so well after all they've been through together, and how this emotional trauma that she's going through is something that Dinah's, and how the two of them, in spite of all that, are in some ways having fun together. Dealing with these guys, the Syndicate. And how far Dinah's come. This operative that used to work for Barbara now is a powerhouse.
Yeah, and her equal,
growth.
And these are two close friends that are working side by side that are doing what they need to do. Both of them, and I like how she wants Barbara to talk, but she knows she can't force her to.
Right.
And Barbara knows that eventually she's going to spill all the beans to her. She's just not ready right now. But she knows that's the one person I can trust.
Right.
This is my friend. This is, my compadre, so it's,
It really is. I'm glad how they're ending this, because it is such a nice nod to the longevity of the friendship. And those moments to me are really, really important. Even the title, the hard traveling heroes, that type of thing. Just that nod. I love that. It was really cool. Infinity not yet knowing Barbara's identity was really important to me, because it fits the theme of the book. Look how long it took for Huntress to find out. Even Dinah herself didn't know for the longest time. She knew that she was teamed up with Oracle. Didn't know face-to-face who Oracle was till much later. I'm glad, that they really are acknowledging that history, and it's not something that's being thrown to the curb. And the book's still a fun ride. It's not one of my top-of-the-stack reads. Like I said, I didn't even realize that I missed 124. But going back and reading 123, 124, and 125, for longtime fans, if you're sad this book's ending and you've maybe dropped it and walked away, this is a fun arc to go back and read. It's not a top of the stack read for me. It's an enjoyable read. There's a huge difference, but I'm very glad I'm reading it. I'm glad to be along for the ride till the end. I'm guessing, is the next issue the next last one, or is there one more after that?
I thought there was 2 more issues. But
Okay, because I know that they're around Battle of the Cowl. This book's ending as well,
Yeah.
so which I believe is in March. So you're right. We might have 2 more. We might have a January and February issue. But I'm gonna be sad to see this book go because I've really been.
Oh,
enjoying
definitely.
it.
And it's I don't want to see Oracle go away. She is such a cool character. So I'm.
Well, we got an Oracle mini.
Well, yeah, we
coming.
got the mini, but there's still. I want an Oracle series. I don't want Birds of Prey to go. This is the one where if you're to say, okay, Jim, you can save one title, which one would it be? I probably would go with this one. Even though I love Blue Beetle, I love Manhunter, this is the one I'd probably save just because I like this dynamic. I like this team.
Yeah, it's interesting though because Oracle. I know they have plans for Oracle or plans for Barbara Gordon.
Yeah,
I was wondering. It's interesting. I'm catching things that I'm probably making a bigger deal out of than I should. The fact that she was so angry about still being in the chair made me wonder: are we going to
see her come back, see her walk again,
I don't know.
I don't know. I wouldn't personally. I like Oracle.
I do too.
I like
I do
her in
too.
the chair. I like the hero who overcomes the physical obstacles to do good in her own way. So it's. But then again, as I'm saying this to you, if they were to have a cool story where it shows her getting her back, cybernetics or Cyborg helping her out, hooking her up, and
It's interesting.
I would say, oh, okay, yeah, all right, cool.
Well, and
I
we've
like
seen that with what happened with her and Brainiac, that she started getting feeling back.
that. Right.
So I don't know. It's an intriguing character. So I'm very curious to follow her. I think we're still going to see her though. From everything I've read in interviews, we're not losing Barbara Gordon. She has other roles that she's going to be taking on in other books. I'm guessing in the Batman universe, but I don't know. Who knows at this point? So I find it fun to speculate about. It's funny though when you were sitting there saying I would get rid of Manhunter or Blue Beetle. I would rather see Barbara absorb because Barbara's enough of an iconic character. If there is no Birds of Prey, somebody's going to use her because they're going to be like, "Wait, you mean Oracle's on the table?" There's a lot of writers who I'm sure would be able to take that character, and we'll see her somewhere. I'm more concerned about Manhunter.
Yeah, that's
Because Blue Beetle's in Titans.
yeah.
So, and I'm enjoying what Sean McKeever's doing with Blue Beetle in Titans. So I'm like, okay, we're going to still see this character monthly. And that's really important to me. So I'm hoping that when the new team comes out, Blue Beetle's got to stay, right?
Dude, he's definitely in.
Right.
Come on,
Okay.
He's part of the team.
Well, and he was part of that crew that they showed on the roster. So, okay, we're going to keep Blue Beetle there.
He's definitely in. And that's why...
And he works on Titans.
Right. And that's actually part of the reason I really wanted to see Birds of Prey stick around because Manhunter fits so well in that team.
Well, and
we
where does
see
she go?
her... Yeah, so I would like to see her as more of a permanent part of that cast.
Yeah, Kate needs to be in a monthly book.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's a team book or what. She's a great character.
And I think she's a tough character for people to write. I don't think they know how to write her or how, it's...
She's worked in Birds, though.
Yeah. She's worked great in Birds. But I just think that's why, because you mentioned how, people are going to be like, ooh, Oracle's on the table. Yeah. I don't think people are saying the same thing about Kate. I don't think they're like, ooh, Manhunter's on the table? Hey, I could use her in this story. But...
And seeing birds in her book has worked really well for me as well. I really liked Andraco's handling of the birds in Kate's book. So it's been a nice relationship that I think has worked very well. So Kate's one of those characters. I hope we're wrong. I hope that somebody is like thinking right now, here's what I could do with Kate Spencer. Because I think she is a really cool female character in the DC Universe that I just don't think enough people have gotten exposed to. I think once you get to know her and she's written really well, she's a very cool character. So it's kind of funny. I wanted to talk loosely about Trinity, just because we haven't had a chance to. And it's the book that I want to keep discussion going on because it's for you and I. We both talk about off the air. You and I talk about Trinity a lot.
I know.
It's on the air. We've been following so many things, and it's been hard to get back to Trinity as much as we want to. And, we're up to issue 30 right now. And there's some interesting themes that have gone on in the book. Convict joins the evil Trinity. And although I use that evil term loosely, because it's interesting that the three of them seem to be searching for their own form of justice.
Yeah.
When they go through the history of those characters, it was very compelling to me that, I mean, Morgane is clearly evil, and she and Enigma are clearly
she's just
doing
misunderstood.
Yeah, but I mean, they're clearly doing evil things. But if you look at her origin, she was really bypassed for royalty in a way that she's got a reason to have issue. Yeah. Now, I think, if you put it in perspective, her issue is maybe a little overdrawn, but
how she's going about getting her thing is wrong.
She's having a super tantrum.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at her compelling history with the Arthurian legend and all that, and you can understand why she would be ticked off. But she's trying to change the world so then that she becomes the ruler that she always should have been by her birthright. Now, you take a look at Enigma. He comes from the crime syndicate Earth. Now, he's having another interesting dilemma. He was a good guy. He was the Riddler of that world. He was a good guy. Mm-hmm. But then his family was killed. And basically, he wants to change the world for the better so that event never happened.
Right. So, yeah.
So he gets his family back. And, what? That becomes the interesting part. Even the most noble of intentions have after effects and can make you... It's kind of like, in some ways, Mr. Freeze. Yeah. He constantly wants to bring his wife back, but is willing to do these horrible acts. He's become like Mr. Freeze.
Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's... And these characters... And I love how Convict wants the power so he can change the world back to where the guy he accidentally killed is dead, so then he can make reparations.
Right.
And I was just like, you don't have to make reparations. He's alive, but that's not the code.
Right.
He killed that guy. He knows he killed a non-combatant by accident. He has to make reparations, but he can't make reparations if the guy's still alive. But then again, he can't go back and kill him a second time this time.
Because that means that he's got double whammy.
Right. So I was like, oh, cool, I like this.
So his code is an interesting conundrum.
Yeah.
Because he's another one who has noble intentions in the state that he's trying to stick by his code, but the world doesn't work according to his code.
Now, the thing I like is that now that their initial plan didn't work, the second Trinity is they're not trying to recreate what they did before. They're doing a different thing before.
Right.
And I like the fact that they had to, they're going to improvise. They got to, it's still the same basic type of, magic incantation, combination science, arcane type stuff going on, which is what makes, Enigma and Morgan such a cool combo. But there is still, they got to do something, and they got to rebuild the pieces, pick what they need here. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I was worried that they were going to try to have to redo some of the old stuff. Like, no. Now they're on to plan B. Same end results they want, but this time a little bit different.
What's interesting, though, is it's setting up the typical problem that villains have. Because you're self-serving, because you have your own selfish goals. And any way you look at it, these three, their goals are all self-serving. Any way you cut it. The problem is their goals don't overlap except in the sense that they want power to be able to change the world. They have very different ideas on what the world should look like, though. Now, Enigma's interesting because I don't know how much it conflicts with Morgane, except Morgane, I'm guessing, doesn't want to just rule our Earth. She wants to rule everything, which would mean that Enigma and her will, at some point in time, be at odds.
Yeah, they'll butt heads
because
eventually.
Alternate realities would count as well, which I'm reading that it's an alternate reality, that we're dealing with here. Because interesting, Dio mentioned that it's the reason why there's two crime syndicates. There is an Earth that is the crime syndicate, but there's an alternate reality from our Earth that's a crime syndicate. He did mention that each Earth has alternate realities as well, which is interesting for storytelling. But it does become confusing then on which crime syndicate's which. Now, we've already had this discussion, and there's been explanations on the forum as far as what's going on here. And that's kind of interesting and cool. That's the part where I don't see Morgane stopping at our Earth. She would use our Earth, would continue to expand out to space, alternate realities, whatever. She would want to rule everything, which means that Enigma ultimately and her are going to be at odds because her ruling his Earth would not fit into his plans.
Yeah, and I don't know, I can't see her just saying, oh, okay, I'll leave your Earth alone. Yeah, so it's...
And Convict, there's going to come a certain point in time where I don't necessarily view Convict as a bad guy. He's sticking to what he believes is the right thing to do. But I would think ultimately, let's say Convict gets his wish and he's able to, this guy's able to be dead again so he can do his... he really wants to put the Earth back the way that it was so that he can do what he
Right. So
needs
if the
to
Earth
do.
is back the way it was, that means the Trinity's back.
Right,
So he's
'cause
in direct conflict with what the other two
It was
want.
during that whole situation that this all happened. So it's interesting now to see that, he's in direct conflict. Or, let's say he ultimately goes back to the point where that guy is dead. He makes his reparations. Is he going to be okay with Morgaine ruling everything? That doesn't seem to fit him and his character. I don't see him succumbing to her.
Yeah, it's there's so many things that can and will go wrong with this whole deal. So it's like, I don't know.
I see him as a misguided noble spirit.
Oh, definitely misguided noble.
So I don't see him fitting necessarily into this role. It's interesting to see with Enigma too, because I don't know that Enigma, when you cut through it all, is necessarily such a bad guy either.
And like their minions, they're kind of like locked into helping Morgana. They can't fight the will. Like, the ape girl, Gorilla Girl. She's really not a bad guy. Gorilla, whatever. She's
You're obsessed with her.
Yes, I am. But
you bring her up all the time.
But she's a cool character.
She is a very cool character. I agree with you.
So
Sunchained and Inked is a cool character too. Which is Tattooed Man, with a kick.
Big time.
On the flip side, we do see the legends and echoes of our Trinity still hold place in spite of the changes. Because of the bleed over, there are tribes that are aware of them and worship them like gods. We've seen statues erected to them that are kind of fantasy related, that are, to their definite archetypes. The changes from Donna, Dick, Nemesis, Alfred, Kara. We see these characters having to, because Alfred, because of his connection now, he's starting to remember more and more Bruce. They go through this ritual, and they start to see glimpses of the people that they were in our timeline, and it starts to affect them. We see Donna actually manifest her powers. She was this
cool
librarian who never became her, but and Dick actually, still being this.
He wasn't really. He stopped being the smirmy, thug, and he was.
But there's elements of that still there.
Well, still a little bit, but it's still
even when he talks to her, because the dialogue is still the same as that smarmy thug. But he even notes that I seem to remember you flying like that. So it's interesting that these characters are. Because Donna didn't completely drop the librarian gimmick either. Mm-hmm. She's still in that role, but there's something more happening here. Nemesis, the same thing we see. I like that. And Alfred actually, out of all of them, he was closer to his true self. So the snap back to being the Alfred that we know, Alfred is a great character in the DC universe. Wait,
the Beagle.
Not just in Trinity. Across the the Batman books, Alfred is cool.
Any Bat title that uses Alfred, they're using him correctly. He's like Wonder Woman, where we're getting Alfred in all these different titles. We're getting who he is and whatnot. It's
a great writing of Alfred right now. I'm enjoying it. Talking about this, Justice Society group. That's basically they've become like this conglomerate almost. They're like this,
a little bit Big Brother there kind of thing going on.
Almost like a governing entity of the sorts. But you see now that Carter, Alan, and Jay, because they're becoming more connected with who they were in our world, we're seeing them don their costumes again. I liked the variations on their costumes. Like the new Carter costume, I thought was very cool.
I kind of like that,
with the green elements to it and all that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty kicking costume. I actually really like that. And Alan, seeing him step up and the whole team. It was interesting how the people were reacting to seeing them in costume after so long. Because it's not something they're used to seeing these characters back in again. Because they're all used to, they've almost got X-Men-like uniforms. Because they're more squad-based now.
Yeah, and it's, the gray and boring, and out they come with their bright, colorful costumes.
And I was thinking kind of the yellow and the black of the X-Men costumes, where, I'm talking about not before they graduate, when they're more students. These are more squads. They're more military, almost, in their approach. That nobody is individual in their presentation. They are more team-oriented with one goal. And I liked that distinction between them because our current JSA is about bringing the individual up to their highest pinnacle of who they can be, making better heroes as individuals, whereas this squad seems to be more interested to keeping everyone within, keep policing everybody. And I like that. I like the distinction. It's a cool title, Trinity. And it's a book that each week when it comes, I'm always interested in.
I know. It's funny because with 52, we were both in love with it, and then Countdown came, and I admit I enjoyed it. I wasn't in love with it. I'm back to being in love with the weekly series again.
We now
I enjoyed Countdown.
Correction on that.
But I wasn't in love with it.
Well, no, but we were when we were. If you go back to some of our episodes, you were gushing over it at times. So was I.
Yeah.
No, here's the problem. I do think the problem is because of the way that Countdown was structured to have such an effect on the universe. I think where you and I both run into the same problem that many people did. The fact that the ending, in many ways, directly contradicted events that we saw in Final Crisis. I think that changed that aspect. Yeah. But if you go back and listen to some of our episodes, you were gushing over Black Mirror. I'm going to wipe the drool from your mouth.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I do admit.
And the whole issues, all the way through. So they can't go back and change that. You can't change history. We loved, we did Top Bullets where Countdown was winding up as top reads as we were going through.
Yeah, okay. I got to give you on that one.
No, I'm just saying, we don't want to change history. But I'm saying it's funny how the after effects of that.
Right.
One thing I like about Trinity, I think a weekly works much better as a contained. I guess the whole reason why my point is, I agree with you in that there's been a change in my view of Countdown in the sense that I thought it was a good series now versus a great series because of how it wrapped up. And I think it's not the fault of the writers. I think it's that it tried too hard to put 52 weeks into this universe and fit into these huge events that are going on, whereas a contained story like Trinity, you can reference it. You can have these characters appear later. You can have these events matter in the universe, but you don't have to have them directly tie into the universe. It works so much better as 52 is contained, this is contained. It fits better this way. This is a great use for a weekly series. I'm glad they went back to this format because this, to me, is a great, compelling story that you get to really know the Trinity in. This is a great weekly series. And I guess that's where the comparison, I think, works for me on Countdown in the sense that it's not trying to be too much. In its own way, it is the spine of the universe. Yeah. And it's not intended or billed to be that. It's working really well. So it's a book that I really wanted to make sure that, and I think we're going to periodically just keep doing this, where we keep doing Trinity segments. And I'd like to do a couple walkthroughs again of issues of Trinity, because I'm really enjoying Trinity a great deal. So we'll do I think maybe, if we don't have anything else in that Green Arrow episode, I think maybe we'll pick an issue of Trinity and kind of do a cover-to-cover and continue this exploration.
Okay.
So we'll do that in a couple of weeks, because I love Trinity, and I wanted to make sure we noted it.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. You're ready to move up.
All right. Our next chat is going to be about the JSA Specials, starting with the Kingdom Come Superman. Written and illustrated by Alex Ross, colors by Alex Sinclair, letters Rob Lay, assistant editor Harvey Richards, editor is Michael Siglane. This story, for me, one of the things I really liked about it is how unsure he is of himself. The world echoes his. He knows how horrible this would end up, and he doesn't want to be a harbinger of that. This story shows us that Superman really takes a ton of responsibility upon himself, and we see his concerns that he has the potential to be a danger to this world. And I really connect with him when he was with the JSA. These are people he associated with on his world. He saw them die. Now he's back with them and knows they're not the comrades that he teamed up with for so long. This has to be extremely difficult for him. Cyclone's reaction to him and the way she looks to him and expects his character works so well. She's innocence. She grew up knowing our Superman was a hero and has the chance to help this one by being able to listen. How cool would that be? To be able to sit there and say, hey, wait, she is us.
Yeah.
At some point in time in our life, we all wanted to be able to say, whether it was Superman or some other hero, hey, plop a seat, you could talk to me. And that acknowledgement had to be awesome.
And I tell you, I think I liked about her is because you sit there and you think maybe the security issues, what if he goes rogue, what if he's bad, but not her. She just sees this person, this man, who his entire world's been destroyed. His life's been turned upside down. Everybody he's loved is gone. And she just wants to help him out. And that is part of her strength of character, part of what makes her such a really cool person is that she's, as you said, she's got that innocence to her. She's got that wonderment, but she is just that compassion as well. She's not looking to him. Yes, she does look to him as he's Superman and in awe, but she is also looking at the man behind the S. Mm-hmm. She's seeing that there is somebody there who's hurting, who, it's got to be tough on him. It's got to be hard. He's away from home, and he can never go back to his home because his home is destroyed.
Is it?
Well, he thinks it is, and
right.
it seems
even
to
Norman
him,
McKay asked that.
Right.
And,
But
it seems that way sort of to him because of the bomb.
yeah.
But we know different, so it's interesting. The story sort of rewrites the ending of Kingdom Come so that the bomb sent Superman here. But as much as I would like him to stay here, he could also be sent back so that the events would unfold as they did in the follow-up to Kingdom. I don't know how they're going to end this. It's interesting to see how this could happen. Because I don't know that I'm 100% convinced his world was completely destroyed.
Yeah, I think, here's two things I was reading this. First off, I was initially reading it that they changed the end of Kingdom Come. And then I read it as if this all occurs after, when the bomb goes off, and in the regular reading, he goes and does his thing, and then they have the whole rally, and he realizes who's still alive, who's not dead, and that type of stuff.
But that occurs after this.
Right. I think what we're going to see is this little snippet occurred like in an off-page panel from Kingdom Come. I think he's going to go back to his world, see that it's all done, and part of the reason that we do see that change in character in Superman on Kingdom Come. He went from being this destroyer to realizing, hey, I got to step up. I got to be a hero again. I got to do the right thing. Is his time on this earth?
Could be. And that's the way I'm reading it too. Actually, we're very in sync.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that about this. When she quotes Revelations, it leads him to wonder about Norman McKay from Kingdom Come. And I do like that he seeks out this religious leader for answers on how things fit together. Often we seek religion to understand our own path, to ground us in a sense for why we are here and what we are trying to do, where we are trying to go. He hopes by connecting with Norman from this world that it might help him make sense of the events that seem to be paralleling those on his world. When he hears of the trouble at the Daily Planet, he has flashbacks to what the Joker did and the deaths associated with it. He wants to prevent that. The thugs were sent by Luthor to use a kryptonite bomb on him. It really was neat that being from our Earth, that beings from our Earth would be affected by this kryptonite, but because he's not, he wasn't affected by it. And I love the shock that it brings out in the villains. And they're like, wait a minute, it's not working?
This was our ace in the hole. We are in trouble
with
now.
A big smile at that moment, like he was getting a little pleasure out of that. Superman takes them out hard and gets so caught up in the emotion of the past that he accidentally hits our Superman. This leads to that now he's questioning himself. Is he part of the danger that is looming? Is he as much of a threat as, what could potentially happen with characters like Gog? I also love that his avoiding Lois. I love my wife. If anything were to happen to her and I were to have to face an alternate version of my wife, practically identical, it would tug at the heartstrings. It would be confusing. How could you not feel something? It's for anybody who has a loved one either from their past, present, whatever, you can make that kind of connection. Yet, how would you not feel conflicted? You'd be glad to see them, but then, we don't have that history. It's not our history. Same person, but not. Wow, would that be tough?
Yeah, I tell you, with the tap with Superman our Superman getting into the scene.
Oh yeah,
so many parts from that I absolutely loved. One, just like when he does the initial tap and we see the follow-up to the opening where he's punching Superman dead. Oh, damn, look on his face when he realizes what he did. But also Clark's follow-up to that was like, and you were going to just punch anybody that hard? You punched me and you knocked me out. Right. What would you done to a normal person? I like seeing that responsibility of Clark just reminding him, hey, you know who you are. You can't do that. And
you didn't know it was me.
Right.
That's the more important point. McKay is out of his depths. He is not the same man, but sees Superman as an angel and even asks if his world is really gone, which I really liked at this point. It does lead me to the question if he'll be going back. It was this sequence right here that made me wonder now, I don't know anymore. Norman's concept that the events of Revelations drove what happened because he chooses to believe they foretold the events adds to this concept of free will and interpretation. A lot of times religious events can be interpreted. We hear all the time about the end of the world coming. If the end of the world were to have come as many times as people have been interpreting from the Bible, we would have all been dead a long time ago. Superman can choose to prevent these things from happening. He can change the events. He needs to forgive himself and be that agent of change. What I really liked about this is nice, a nice lead-in, a nice foreshadowing to the events that we start to see in issue 21 from him.
And I also dig that Norman is sitting there and he has to, he's caught up in this moment. This is Superman. This is an iconic figure in this world, and he's not, he's got to calm down a little bit, but he eventually does give some good heart-to-heart advice. He is able to actually help him because, Norman is a preacher, and part of the thing the preacher do, they help people. They listen to what you're saying. They offer their advice. They offer their support, and, commentary and whatnot. So you see Norman, but he had to calm down. He had to get back in the groove a little bit.
And it wasn't just because it was Superman.
Yeah.
Because, in this case, it's not Superman. It's Superman from another universe who's telling this fantastic story of another universe. And you have to take a look at this guy. You got to remember Norman never met Superman, this Norman. Never met our Superman. So you're coming up with a guy who looks like Superman, who's coming in here saying, hey, I'm Superman from another world, and look what happened to me. So overwhelming situation already. Just meeting Superman, you'd be flustered and out of your depth. Imagine now having to not only acknowledge this crazy story that this man's telling, but you have to react to it in a rational way and somehow find a way to get yourself to that point, and he does. I really enjoyed the reality of that particular moment and how it took to get to that. And it must be hard for Superman to see the older Norman with his wife, picturing, that's what my Lois should look like. Do you think all of his teammates were questioning him like he thought? I think that's somewhat true, but probably expanded by Superman's own paranoia and worries over it, because he's obviously has a lot of introspective thought about this. Maybe his own questioning of himself is projecting. Just some of the thoughts I had, or his behavior. Do you think everyone really was viewing him the way that he thought, or do you think some of it's true and some?
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit column B.
Yeah,
there is some questioning, but there is some paranoia.
It read very real.
Yeah,
in the sense that there probably very much is, and probably his own behavior and his own reaction to them is generating that. Because if you act like you're thinking people are thinking that way of you, you kind of breed some of that. Yeah. So it was interesting to me that I was taking it beyond that moment. It was a very small moment, but I was taking it beyond that. That's how real it read to me, that I was really trying to psychoanalyze a situation. That's where it becomes a little three-dimensional. It's cool. Cyclone tries to comfort him again, and Clark has to run off, this time to meet with Lois. She knows he's probably watching from a distance and tries to offer her own ear to let him vent how Lois died, which I think is the real reason she asked. I love how he awkwardly called her Mrs. Kent instead of Lois, keeping a little distance there, keeping it formal. This would be a very strange meeting, and there would be that part of you that if you start connecting too closely, you'd start to wonder, is she feeling for me what I'm feeling for her? You know what I mean? It would be a very dangerous sequence of events, and I liked that formality that he was putting in there.
I also kind of took it as maybe a protection of secret identity or something like that.
Protection? What protection?
I don't know. I don't know. I was just thinking maybe he's thinking, okay, I can't acknowledge that, Superman is married to Lois Lane.
Except that she knows exactly why he would be watching her from distance, Lois Lane and all that. So I don't think it was. I read it more as him holding her at a distance.
Yeah, to be honest, that's probably more about.
Because I mean, emotionally, for somebody, I could imagine being there. You would have to say, "I can't let," because it would be very easy in that situation to get very comfortable with that person because you know them so well. This is an alternate version of his wife.
Yeah,
he knows her so well.
Yeah,
this is the love of his life. And how do you keep that distance? I took it as him protecting himself.
Probably. You know what? To be honest, forget I just said what I said. That's one of those things where I just throw out something that just pops in my head, and I probably shouldn't.
No. It's interesting. Yeah. I think it's interesting because it leads to the discussion as to why we feel the way we do.
Now, I do like the fact that Lois is kind of gets him able, because we say how he knows Lois well and there's that comfort, but there's also the reverse way.
Yeah.
Lois is the one who's able to get him open up. Cyclone's been trying, but Cyclone can't either push the right buttons or write commentary, that thing where there's that comfort there that he can open up to her, and he's able to open up.
Well.
Yeah,
and you're right. That totally worked for me. To see the moment where the Joker kills Lois, it was very eerie how much it mirrored Jason Todd's death.
Yeah. Well, that's Joker's style. Right. Up front, up close, personal, bludgeon him to death. It's personal. It's not, he wants to have fun with it.
And
so why
Clark's reactions very much, at that point, Bruce's. The moment where they said goodbye, it's so hard. We get to see here something that adds more depth to Kingdom Come. She begged him not to cross the line with Joker. This adds more strength to the events with Magog in the original mini as to why this actually has even added to that story, and that you say right now, wait a minute, wow, his wife told him not to do this. This prelude to Kingdom Come adds to Kingdom Come. Adds to the strength of his character in Kingdom Come, and the fact that in the face of the ridicule from Magog, he still stood his ground and stuck by his wife. I love that.
Yeah, plus, how cool was it that that Lois is the only one in the Daily Planet who not only has a gas mask ready for such type of events, but she throws it on, and instead of hiding and waiting, she throws down with the Joker. She goes after the guy, and it's like, that's Lois Lane. And this wasn't even our young Lois. This was an older Lois. Yeah. And she still said, hey, you ain't getting away with it. I'm going to stop you.
The concept that Clark is into the goodness, the way he was raised, is something that he needs to hold on to. That Clark side of him is that goodness. That certain sense of duality, like if you ignore your Smallville roots, if you ignore the Clark Kent side of yourself, and you totally immerse yourself into the mask that is Superman, because in many ways, as Superman, he can never truly be himself, because he's got this enormous responsibility on him when he dons the cape and tights. But when he drops it, he's Clark Kent. And I'm not talking about the reporter at the Daily Planet Clark Kent. I'm talking about the Clark Kent that we see sometimes use the superpowers when he's with his family, the Clark Kent that we see when he's with Lois, the one that, there's no mask on either side. He can just totally relax and be the Smallville farm boy,
Yeah.
And it's not so much that he's a farm boy that does that. It's the concept of who people really are. We all have people that we really are when we relax. When I'm at work and I teach, there's certain elements of myself that I have a responsibility to behave a certain way, to be responsible for students in a certain way, and to present things to students in such a way to make them better people. I can't relax and be myself and joke around the way I would with a friend, because my goals are very different for them. I think it's very true. I think we all have masks that we put on throughout our day. You have masks you put on when you go to work.
Yeah.
It's you're a certain person when you're at work. We all have to do that.
Yeah, I am James at work.
Yes, you are. Hello,
James.
I don't think I've ever called you James so much as when I call you up at work. Because you've always been Jim to me. Clark died the day in his eyes when Lois died, and that he'll never return. Except I think we see in issue 21 that's not true.
Yeah, which
is really cool.
Yeah,
because Clark was in issue 21.
And you think about it, also part of the problems that he had in Kingdom Come was because he lost who Clark was,
right.
And at the end of Kingdom Come, Clark comes back. That's further evidence why I'm thinking after all this happens, it takes place at the end there, and you can change his stuff around.
I agree. Let's take a look at Magog number 1. Peter J. Tomasi on the story and words. Fernando Passarin is the penciler. Mick Gray's the inker. Hi-Fi and colors. Rob lays the letter, and it's the same editorial team. The backup story, the Starman story, was written by Jeff Johns. Scott Collins on the art. Hi-Fi's colorist. The letter is John J. Hill. We start taking a look at this Magog story. His story and motivations really worked for me. Gog saved his life, gave him a chance to make a difference. In the military, where a leader earns your respect, you put your trust in them. You don't have the time to question because it's life or death. You need to react quickly. A split second can be the difference between living and dying. The loyalty he shows Gog has been earned by Gog's actions. That's what I like about this story. There seems to be little reason to doubt Gog. I really enjoy the sense of height and power in Gog. Everybody looks tiny to him visually in the way it's drawn, and he often seems to miss things going on around him because of it. And
the thing I liked about it with David was initially he wasn't complete blind obedience to Gog. Mm-hmm. He was following him and he was listening, and he was like, okay, I can appreciate what this guy's done for me, but my first loyalty is to my country, not to Gog. This isn't my God. This is just a powerful being who's granted me abilities, but I'm not going to just, bow down to him. And I like the fact that initially we don't see him immediately given to him, yes, master, whatever you want, my master. There was more to the buildup of going from David to Magog. There wasn't just, boom, I'm there.
I know it's become kind of a show joke how much I love Hawkman. The point where we like exaggerate it at weird times where it's really not appropriate. Hawkman's not appropriate to the discussion. But he really is one of my favorite characters. And the handling with him in JSA has just been so great. I'm hoping some of you who are relatively new to the character are getting a vibe for what makes him so interesting from this story, because it really is, when you see him in JSA, there are moments in there where it's just priceless. Why he's such a cool character, to seeing his duality and his, struggling with, because when he's in warrior mode, he's not always the most rational person.
Yeah.
He's really about the fight and that aspect of it. And sometimes he has trouble reconciling, and that's what I find interesting about the character. Too often he gets in this hoorah mode that we always talk about on the show, and has trouble seeing things the way that Carter Hall. He's got his own sense of duality. Carter Hall being the curator, more calm, more research-based, and he isn't always able to reconcile those two different modes of operating, which is, I do find very intriguing about him. They realize all of the dead bodies are due to a poisoning of the water. The debate over the pros and cons of diverting the water read very real to me. It added depth and realism to these characters. You divert the water, they lose their drinking water. If you don't, they drink it and die. I mean, obviously there's no choice there, but you got to take a look at now, okay, we're diverting this. These people have no source of water. What do we do? And it leads to an interesting reason why they would be so accepting of what Gog does later. So it really, that debate was crucial to me. Magog is a natural military leader. He uses his squad to the best of their abilities, which we see with Amazing Man and Damage. Even the humor is appropriate here with how it truly, takes a bend of the river and what they do there. I just laughed. Well, at least until Gog notices them, and almost like his pets, he's helping out. Because they're like, the gerbil that gets caught in the tube or something like that. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, I can make this easier for you. Let me clear this obstruction.
And it was cool how they didn't initially go to Gog and say, hey, can you help us out here? They are heroes. They got to do their job. They got to do what they're going to do.
You ever played SimCity?
Yeah.
Gog's playing SimCity. And occasionally along the way, a few people die, but it's for the betterment of his world. And Gog really is viewing these people as like, hey, if you're following me and you're really cool in the game, I'm going to keep you alive if you're not.
And it puts a whole new level to
We're all Gog.
Yeah.
Anybody who's played SimCity is Gog. Because when you think about it, if you play that game, very few people that play it are actually really good for the people of their respective worlds. Maybe little portions of them.
No.
But,
the good neighborhoods do well with me.
But there's a whole bunch of people that die. Now, here's an interesting philosophical issue. They invade the village and work to bring it down, and especially to bring down those responsible for the poisoning of the water and the death. These terrorists, this terrorist cell that's there. David is stopped from killing, but then Gog steps in and turns them into fresh water that will clean the toxins and help all. And I found myself wondering if I had an issue with this, because he used those that killed others to save the rest. I got to admit this type of action would stop crime. I mean, if you knew this Gog was running around changing people who are criminals into things that will help society, you would certainly stay the straight and narrow.
Here's the thing, yes and no. It's going to sound weird that I'm disagreeing with you on that, because it's the biggest argument against the death penalty is that the threat of the death penalty doesn't actually stop people from doing bad things. There's still, Ohio has the death penalty, but we still have murders. We still have deaths. We still have drug dealers out there. We still have all types of, scum in the universe doing whatever they do. But, we still have this looming threat. Now, the thing with Gog, it's not the thought that Gog may do it. It's the fact that Gog has done it.
And that you can see
right.
Like with trees, for example. Imagine you're going to go rob a bank, and you pass by a tree that used to be a terrorist.
Yeah. That's not only used to be a terrorist, you can still see the slight face, and you can probably hear him screaming in pain.
Right. And that would be newsworthy.
Yeah.
That would be on the news. I think it's going to cut down crime. You're right. It's not going to completely cut for the exact reasons you said, and I totally agree with your point there. But I do think that there are going to be certain people who may have made other choices are going to go, Am I going to be lumber, or am I going to go rob a bank?
I think Plan B. I think here.
Yeah.
Let's go for something else.
The problem with GOG, and it's something we've got to think about there, is where does it stop? Because GOG's going to keep doing these things, and where does he draw the line? When is it too much? And this is where, philosophically, what gives GOG the right to do this? What made him the almighty power that can make those decisions for people? Because he's done some nice things? Well, we find out later that those nice things maybe aren't as nice as they look on the surface. It's made me think. This all made me think, because I was like agreeing with him, but then I wasn't, and because of different reasons. And you're right. When we start heading to Magog right now and start following his journey to the terrorist cell, you're right. We've got some real philosophical issues coming in here, as well, as far as there's things that he was doing I could understand his anger. And there were parts where I was like, he's going too far. So it's interesting with the terrorists.
It's weird with him, because one second I'm saying no, one second I'm saying yes. Mm-hmm. Because I did kind of like seeing him turn. I did like seeing him earlier turn the things into fruit trees and turn them into the water to purify. I'm like, yeah, I could. And I tell you, if I was in the JSA, I would be one of those guys right now with him. And I would be right next to Hawkman and right next to Amazing Man and all that, and just, going, yeah, this guy's okay. Look at what he's doing. It's all right. He's punishing the wicked, but he's doing it for the greater good. And I could see myself falling into that trap. Now, one of the things I was thinking about is with Magog, though, because when we get this initial encounter with these things, that's what I was thinking we would see the turn from David to Magog. I thought we would see him, go farther into it, drink more of the Kool-Aid, if you will. But that's the thing where I was glad we didn't see it yet. It wasn't dealing with these terrorists. It was Gog who did that. And Gog probably knew that he needed to step up. He knew there was more coming down the line for David that would lock him in.
It's David's history, too, though. Because you got to take a look at the flashbacks to David's childhood as he runs to meet his former squatter great. I particularly love how much he respected JSA as a kid due to his family. Who wouldn't be proud to have that association? And the whole point of this group Post 52 is inspire heroes to be better. Why wouldn't they also drive those around them since their formation? David wanted to be better because of their example. So David had this drive inside him that made him natural, like Gog was putting out the... I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
But Gog was laying out a worm
to
bait. But for something that was very much inside David, that was very easy for him to pull out and reel in.
Yeah, and these flashbacks to his past was another thing that it drew me into who David was. Up until this issue, I really didn't care about this guy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, yeah, they're making this some unknown guy into Magog, and no big deal. This is the stuff that flushed out, gave me this, knowledge and aching. So if they get rid of David, if they get rid of him, I'm going to be like, oh man, he was a cool character. They could have done so much more with him. And they're giving us that connection to him. And there was just so much stuff like with his reaction to 9/11. That's when he, said, I got to step up. I got to do something for my country. And that is such a very realistic reaction. The recruitment in the U.S. military is pretty much at like an all-time high. And you would think we're at war. Why are people volunteering? Well, it's people see this. People see that we need soldiers. We need to step up. It's, the whole freedom isn't free is a line that a lot of people, a lot of military families, you throw around and you say that and you believe it.
Even before that, though, when you're taking a look as he gradually finds his squad, this is a guy who grew up in a world of good guys and bad guys with no gray area. The problem with a power, though, is knowing when to stop, and this is going to be a continual theme. He becomes more and more horrified as he finds his squad. It's interesting that this follows the Superman special where Lois reminds Superman not to lose Clark. Magog, Superman, their stories are intersecting, and this really leads to the main conflict in the JSA. It's about balance. When do we lose free will? When do we overstep our rights? These issues all feature in this debate. It divides the team, and I really like that they eventually get slapped in the face with that reality. I really understood why the dilemma was even in place here. On the surface, many things are happening here, and they do make sense. The problem is, where is that line, and when was it crossed, or where will it be crossed? They rubbed cigarettes in the eyes of the helicopter pilot. I don't know how calmly I would handle just that event, much less the horrors he sees afterwards. I was sympathetic to David. David crosses a lot of lines, but I understood why. I agree with you. This issue's crucial to my liking of David, my understanding of David. Even though I don't agree with his actions, I understand his actions. Huge, important factor here. This is one of those specials that to me was like, ooh, this is very, very well written and very well handled, because I was like, I actually like this guy, even though I don't agree with all of his actions. And then that leads into that whole 9/11 segment you're mentioning. But then he finds his friends murdered, and it leads to a memory of an artifact. Jim, I have to admit, if you were killed and stuck to a tree, I'd be mad if a bunch of animals were chomping on your remains too. Dude, you're a good man. And everyone knows you honor someone properly by dousing them in your favorite variation of KC Masterpiece before you chow down on them. 101 ways to eat your favorite whatnot. I would honor you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and for the record, I do like the richer, thicker barbecue sauce. So if you're going to go with that, go with anything. Go with that.
Okay, so you do like a Casey Masterpiece?
Oh yeah. It's got a nice little bite to it, but it's thicker, so it sticks to the meat. It's not just going to run off and be kind of runny.
No, because you don't want to taste bland.
Right.
Come on. Yeah, because then people will talk, or they won't talk.
Yeah, you'd rather them talking, going, that was the best tasting whatnot I've ever had. Damn.
The artifact is interesting because that accident left him changed. He's been through a lot in his life. The background gives us a quick emotional attachment to those he lost. I like the way Johns uses origin information to further present-day storytelling. We get to know the character and the people in their life. These deaths matter to us. And I did geek out at seeing Captain Atom. I wonder if we're going to see Monarch again. I miss the old Captain Atom, too, though. It's interesting. I don't know if those moments affected you, but it was a small, quick moment with him that really fit. It would make sense in the military world. It would test him and try to put him in a special unit. But I do like the concept, and I'm sure you geeked out. I was like, sort of like, Jim had to geek out at this. He would want to stay with Epsilon. He's been through life and death and trust those guys. In the field, you would want to be with those you trust to have your back.
Hoorah, man! Oh yeah,
I was thinking of
those are his brothers, man.
Yeah.
You don't leave them behind. You don't leave a man behind. You don't give up on your team. And I was just eating that up, and even after we go through all this cool stuff, we see his final reaction. We joked around about the Casey Masterpiece,
sure,
but I loved the Viking funeral pyre.
Sure,
that itself is just a nod to every warrior race that does that. There are so many different, and I say Viking funeral pyre, but there's still, you can go Roman, you can go Native American, you can go pick any strong, powerful, society where the warrior is a key piece to it, and you see the same type of ritual. And I half expected him to put a piece of silver on, two gold coins on his eyelids to pay the boatman when he arrives. I was just like, there's just so much that I was like, yes. And you're seeing this, meshing of the old world, new world type of mindset in David. He's slowly stopping being David and starting becoming something else. He's starting to become Magog.
But this change, and it goes back to something interesting you said. When we're talking about 9/11, you're making about that point. That was something for him. He was angry that he couldn't do anything about that horror. That led him to join the military, to try to do something, to never let the horror like that happen again, to try and make it right. He's now witnessing another heroic atrocity, but he's in a position now where he can do something in his eyes to make this right. And it's interesting that this motivation is something that has continued for years in his life. He's trying to do the right thing. He really thinks he is justified in his motivations for doing things. And I like that because I understood him. He was very consistent in that 9/11 sequence to this moment in his anger and his reactions to it. He is somebody who, when you see a major atrocity, you don't just say, geez, I would like to do that. He actually goes and tries to join things, become a part of things, to do something to be an agent of change. And in many ways, he's very reactionary to horrors. The rebels are brutal. They tortured and killed 2 guys to break a third for info. They promised to kill him fast if he squeals. Our really disgruntled Magog not to be confused with the happy, gruntled, pixie-like Magog that we are used to seeing in his Saturday morning cartoon, shows up and snaps. He looks like Schwarzenegger in Commando.
Oh, dude.
In fairness, he makes everybody limp in this sequence. I mean, interesting that due to his behavior and appearance that he mistakes, his friend mistakes him for the devil. And, Magog will have to choose similar sides in the upcoming battle with Gog. David is no longer David at this point. It's all about revenge, not making a difference or saving anybody. This is revenge at this moment. This is anger and revenge.
And it's funny because I saw all this coming. I knew this was how this was going to play out as the issue. I'm like, okay, here it is. Here's the moment. But I really did not expect the brutality. But it wasn't just the brutality. There was that moment of peace and that calm when after he kneecaps the one dude. He fries off one guy's arm, and he does all this nasty stuff. His buddy there, who, as you said, he thinks he's the devil. He takes off his helmet, and he's like, "No, it's me. It's David, man. It's you remember we're buddies, And he had that moment of calm where he's going to help his friend, and then as soon as the friend dies, you can just kind of see it in his face where it's like, chunk, okay, back to the killing, and he puts the helmet on, and it was just like. Right there is when the music starts kicking in my head. The dun 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 dun. As he just puts it back on, and okay, time for some more butt whooping. The can has been opened, and I was just like, ooh.
The rebel leader spits in his face, and he shoots him in the head. He leaves the rest unable to walk and trapped in a hole with their blood as bait for animals. I mean, Gog apologizes for the loss of his friends. Now here's where, again, I'm questioning Gog. You have to wonder, why didn't Gog save them if he knows so much? Gog wasn't there.
Because Gog knew he needed the final catalyst to change David from David to Magog.
We see him do similar things later with Damage. Yeah. Gog's manipulative.
Yes.
Was the lesson he was trying to teach Magog about his form of justice? We see how brutal Gog is with his enemies, and he wants him to understand. So he's got somebody here who richly understands him. He's looking for the same thing in Damage. It's interesting. He changes the course of the river again to return water to the village. David cleanses off in the river, and they head to Kahndaq. Very powerful sequence of events for me.
It was funny because we're talking about just powerful sequences. I thought it was kind of very interesting that David shows up covered in blood, and no one else says anything. No one makes any comments. Are you okay? Hey, what happened? It's just they're kind of like getting into the acceptance that something happened, and okay, we continue on with what we're doing. And I don't know if it's like a group think, or if it's a mind block, or if it's just they're not looking at the total picture. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, that's kind of interesting. You'd think if, your buddy came back from, doing something in the woods by himself, and he's covered in blood, you'd at least say something.
That's true. Very true. Now let's lead us into the Starman backup. Here's an interesting question. When Starman is crazy, do you think he knows his secret mission? I could see it either way, but he's definitely more determined now to save the 31st century. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's when he's crazy, he's lost and confused, and he doesn't know what he needs guidance as to his mission. But now, once his mind's clear, then he's like, boom, okay, I know what I got to do.
I think he has elements of it where he pulls from them, and he can see things, he'll see things clearly, sort of, at different periods of time, but he's so out there. This is a nice mini origin of the Xanthoan descent. The White Dwarf Observatory leading to his powers, his paranoid schizophrenia, and how the pills compensated. This is the cool thing about the Legion. They have flaws. They are more human and accessible. It does make you believe in that in spite of your own flaws. We all have flaws. I have plenty of mine. You could be a hero. How cool is that? I mean, it's, Legion rocks.
Beard and all. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about your beard issues. Yeah.
And to be honest, I'll tell you 100%, as things are going on with him, I am now over that issue with the character. There's just, I accept it, and I think it looks cool, and I like him. I like it on him. It fits him. It is who Starman is now for me. It's not, now if I saw him without the beard, then I'd be like, dude, why'd you shave?
There you go. Here's a question. You would really say that to him?
I would. I'd say, dude, why'd you shave? Unless he shaved it down to a nice, stylish goatee. Then I could see him.
Because you have a goatee?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm noticing a theme here. Jim is fashion. Here's a question. Do you think killing a man in self-defense, if there's an actual genuine self-defense reason, is a reason to be expelled from the Legion? I do like the simple times in comics where good and evil were very black and white, but there's a question. Do you think he should have been expelled there? It was self-defense.
No. I'm going to stick with my initial gut is no. I think self-defense is one thing. And because I believe in the death penalty. I believe in capital punishment. I believe in, that if someone's going to kill me, I have a right to protect myself. Or if someone's going to kill you, I have a right to kill them after they've killed you. So
it's a bad law because killing is not very simply defined in one word. There's multiple kinds of killing. Self-defense is a huge thing, You
didn't catch what I said.
What?
I said, if someone's going to kill me, I'll kill them. But if they're going to kill you, I'll kill them after they kill you.
Oh, I just kind of go on. That's nice of you. I appreciate that, yeah.
Hey, you're going to dip me in KC barbecue sauce, so what the heck?
Hey, I'm honoring you. You were just going to have me killed and just go on your merry way. There was no honor. Where was the honor there?
I would have given you the full Viking burial.
Would you really?
Oh, yeah. I'd build up a pyre. Yeah. Well, that's actually Greek, ancient Greek, but I probably would.
You said the coins. You said the coins.
As I said, it was a meshing of all the. And actually, I probably would have done that instead of Viking.
Really?
Yeah. Give you the two gold coins on your eyes, so you can pay the ferryman when you arrive and all.
What about
stuff.
The pyre? Would there be a pyre?
Yeah. It's all.
I want a Star Wars like pyre though.
Ooh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you've got to have the music playing where it really makes like
not the
closing Ewok music. Either version.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't want that. I want that emotional music that Luke had when he was burning Darth Vader.
Oh, okay.
He was not dancing to the Ewok music.
Well, it was playing in the background.
No, there was the sad little Star Wars introspective music at that point. He wasn't, they were going yub yub and dancing around him at that point. Although that would be kind of fun.
See, I'd rather have the yub yub.
Yeah, the original. Well, that's an interesting point. Do you prefer the yub yub music or the new music that they put on there when they revamped Return of the Jedi?
Original.
Yub yub?
Yeah.
It's yub yub all the way.
All the way, man.
Yeah. You know what? I would actually, I'll say this right now. If I get killed by a supervillain and you've got to, burn me like that, I would be okay as making a statement of musical preference in Return of the Jedi if you were to dance around to the yub yub music.
Okay, cool. Well,
as long as it was a YouTube video.
Of course. Before any of that happens, I got to give you the Klingon burial as well.
Okay.
And that's where you just stand over the dead body, you scream top of your lungs.
You've really thought about my death pretty in depth, haven't you?
No, not at all, really. Oh.
You got a coin here you're flipping about my death, and you want the Klingon burial and yub yub. And,
that's just
stuff.
so I get my Star Trek reference.
Oh, okay. So it's just really just a random.
Yeah.
Now, would you actually do that to make sure you got your Star Trek reference?
Yes.
Or you just throw,
Oh no, that's the cool thing.
So it's not half-hearted.
No. Hey, if I'm going to do something psychotic, I'm doing it all the way, man.
That's right. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about you. You don't skimp.
No.
It's a very twisted tangent.
I know.
Now, like we said, we were talking about the self-defense killing. He came back for the Legion of Three Worlds, and I do like how this acts as a teaser to the whole thing. We're going to see what happens to him. Also, the Brainiacs knew more about the potential of his powers than he did. So this story is going on right now in the miniseries.
Right. We
just haven't seen it yet. That's really cool. I like that. He opens a Stargate to the other universes, and I like, that we're learning more, little tidbits, little teasers. Johns is really good at this. I like when he does these little flashes at the end of a series or in the end of a book where, we get 3 little panels that show us, things that are going to come up. Or in this case, this whole backup is all about leading us to, and he's pulling from a lot here, because this even pulls from Starman at a certain point. In the middle of the Earthman adventure, they have to plan for a problem in the past with help with a problem from the future. There's a ton of responsibility on the Legion. I mean, could you imagine having to live like this? This Earthman crisis is bad enough. They got to worry about stuff that happens down the road because of time travel. So it's like, how does this connect to Final Crisis? I don't know. I don't know that it necessarily even has to. I'm not, pressing for that at the moment, but I'm curious. So it's not something where I'm like, geez, I want it laid out right now. How does this tie into Final? I'm not like that. I'm curious about it just because it's labeled Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds. But how does this connect to where the Legion goes from here has me curious. The story has me captivated. Johns is feeding us this over time. I love that this is built since Lightning Saga. It's where continuity can add to a story. I don't, that's where I said I'm a fan of continuity. There's points in time where I'm willing to bend, where it doesn't, I'm not going to go crazy over it. But there's moments where, and this is why people get so passionate for continuity, when you get stories like this where, like, wow, this has been told since Lightning Saga, and we're getting this epic story of the Legion that's been gradually given to us over time. That to me is where continuity works, and where, there's a difference between doing 5-issue arcs and doing 5-issue arcs or mini arcs, but having an overarching story that's being told throughout that. That to me is so cool when that care is being put in. It's why it's nice to have writers who are on titles for a long time and can actually play around with them. Here's a question: do you think Starman has to kill someone? He has an unsettling task. What do you think that is? I'm just guessing here. He has to get a job to do this task, and I'm glad that these one-shots kind of lead into each other. He becomes this this caretaker, of he's a gravedigger.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. Does he have to kill himself?
I don't think he's got to kill himself. I think I don't know. That's, because I was thinking about what would you need to be, work for the morgue, work for the mortician, work for a gravedigger. One thing I was wondering is if maybe he has to dig up somebody. Maybe he has to desecrate a grave, and do the whole something with a dead body or something like that. And maybe that's why he needs to get the connection into this caretaker. But he could, if he had to do that, he could have just done it as himself. So that's why I'm like, what are they doing? So I don't know.
It definitely had me confused here. I like the Danny Blaine version being brought in, and how all that's kind of a tease to events that actually happened in the Starman comic, where they said that he was going to come back to Earth in our time in Starman, and that he would never leave this time. And I do remember this from Starman, because he's supposed to die here. Mr. Terrific is understandably cautious. This man was crazy. Now he seems well, and he worries that his mission might get someone killed. He's refusing to break the Legion code, which again confuses me. Is he lying to Mr. Terrific? And that's what I said. Is he willing to lose his own life? And that's, I don't know. It was an interesting story here for me. So that mystery, to me, this backup was absolutely huge. So I really enjoyed this issue. Let's talk about the Kingdom Special. Writers are Jeff Johns and Alex Ross. Penciler is Fernando Pesserin. Inks by Mick Gray, Fernando Pesserin, Jack Purcell, Norm Ratmond. Colorist is Hi-Fi. Letterer is Rob Lay. And the Earth 2 pinup in the back was by Jerry Ordway. Same editorial team that we've seen, and wow. All three of these specials, you talked about last one of the comments that I really liked that you were making was how much that fleshed out Magog for you, and how you really cared about David, and how much you needed that at this stage of the game. And I would agree with you. I think all of these specials did that to me in a certain way. This one had a lot to do with me as far as Gog, and how the team was reacting to Gog, and some of the elements there. So this one was just as crucial to me and my feelings on that one.
This issue here was the special that really had me chomping at the bit for 21. I as you heard me say, I liked the other. This one was something I was like, oh man, I can't wait now. And I was just like, kind of get the shakes going. And the one thing I was wondering is, do we have anybody out there who didn't pick up these specials? And if you didn't pick up the specials, are you enjoying the JSA story as much? Because I know for a fact the specials helped me really enjoy. I mentioned last time how David, the Magog one helped me get a handle on that one. This one had a lot of different character interactions and just the emotional and the responses they were having. So I'm wondering if anybody out there on listening, if you
didn't pick up these,
didn't pick it up, and if you did it change your perspective of the series?
Also, I'd like to hear not only these specials. Are you liking when DC does this? I like them. Green Lantern was Green Lantern and Sinestro Corps War. I thought very similar to how I'm enjoying these. Those added some depth to characters in that made me enjoy and sympathize with them even more. Cyborg Superman is one I go back to really quick. That for me I thought was absolutely stellar from the Sinestro Corps War. and made me actually care about him. I was following his story and captivated by it because of what we got to see in that one. So it's these specials are really something that for me, I'm curious too. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I wasn't even thinking that way. I have to say the art team did a great job of keeping the same tone and consistency. We have multiple art teams on the specials, but also in JSA 21. And it all seems to flow together nicely. I mean, I noticed slight little art differences, but it really connects together pretty consistently, considering. At the end of Day 5, we see some nice foreshadowing to Issue 21 with Citizen Steel getting frustrated. He wants to be noticed. He doesn't need to rest. It's interesting that some are noticed and unnoticed by Gog. Didn't Mr. Terrific have similar problems?
Yeah.
Where he wasn't being noticed? I'm wondering if there's a technology component there that's causing the problem.
Yeah, that or because they're saying with the faith and all that stuff. And I got some theories on Citizen Steel we'll get to in a minute.
Okay, I'm curious to see what your theories are. We have multiple age groups in the JSA. It's nice to see the new gen like Damage, Tommy, Judo Master connecting. This philosophical issue is interesting. They believe they are just as right as the other side of the split does. Does having the power to go in and change a country give you the right to do it? This is an edgy debate to throw into a comic. They're entering into Kahndaq, and we get that Tommy, for example, isn't as comfortable fighting as Dad. He does believe it's often necessary, though. Now, Damage feels that they have Gog, so that everything will be just swell if they go into Kahndaq. They have a superior force. But does Gog have the right to dictate how to handle this? This country is basically a terrorist state. Will Gog stop there, though? This is nice foreshadowing that Gog is trying to bring all under his concept of a saved world. That's his, not their concept. His concept. Yeah. I am saving you. Well, who asked him to? It's interesting, and how do we know that his idea of a saved world is what we want? You're taking away free thinking. Gog is dictating what law is. Are there consequences to this? What will happen if everyone doesn't agree? Do evil people just get turned into water and trees? And what constitutes someone being evil? Is that definition going to be broadened? And we see... this is leading towards things that...
Nice foreshadowing onto what we're actually going to see when, the next issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Gog gives the choice of spreading the word of his deeds or praying with him. He is setting up a PR campaign, but he's also setting up Damage here. And I specifically can tell that was the segue that led him to this, was Damage talking. This was another important sequence. Imagine having powers that gave you horrible nightmares every night, but also saved lives. Gog heals you, and you can sleep again, but imagine the guilt when a child dies that you could have saved. Do you feel relief that you can get normal rest again, or wish your curse back so that you can save others? It's a great example of a power set that isn't so, exciting to have. The nightmare dreams and the connection to the earth, you would never have time for inner quiet. Because, forget about the dreams. During the day, he's constantly got these connections, too. There's no time to relax and think. Something would always be invading that.
Yeah, see, this is another one of those things where I didn't really know too much about Sand. Mm-hmm. So this issue right here gave me a lot of insight into who he was and what's going on about it. I ate up the sequencing, not just the story-wise wine, but just the visuals of it. We had these great just art sequences with some heavy shadowing and the dark feeling. And it was just like, oh yeah, okay.
Sand used to lead the JSA. Before he had the Sandman-like powers, he just had the sand connection with the earth powers. And he was an interesting character right from the get-go that I've always liked. And his development has been very gradual. He had a big crush on Kendra Saunders when she was a part of the team. And they had a relationship that was going up until the return of Hawkman. You remember when we did the review of that, there was hints of that relationship. So he was an interesting character. I can't recommend enough people going back to. It's funny, we did our last Top Bullets, Jim, and I realized it after we did the recording. I didn't mention JSA. I didn't have it in my list, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. And if I did, it was very much an afterthought. This is a book, and I've got to say, probably the most sincere compliment I can give, I'm always so convinced of the quality of this book that I oftentimes forget to list it as... This is one of those, I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to go even on, the new creative team, don't you? Willingham and Matthew Sturgis?
Yeah.
The Fables team is going to be coming on this, which to me is, if you're going to take over, this is going to be a team I think that'll have fun with this book. But this is a book, if I had to list 5 books right now that I wouldn't drop, this would make my top 5. I love JSA.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is on my short list. If I had to go down to 1 or 2 titles, this would probably be up there as well on my list. It would be a very tough move to make, but this would be on there right now. Secret Six would be on there right now. I'd have a tough time going through and listing the other 3 at the moment. But those are 2 books right now that I could say I would not drop in a million years: Secret Six or JSA right now. They're 2 books that I'm just having way too much consistent fun with.
Yeah, there's too much grooviness going on with these characters.
I would have a very tough time, though, because I'm enjoying a heck of a lot on a high level. I would have to find single books that are giving me a fix, versus crossed over books.
Right.
So it'd be real interesting.
Dude, I don't even want to think it. Yeah. It'll be too tough on me.
Yeah, but those are 2 books, and the nice thing about them is they're very contained, in both of those cases.
Yeah.
That's why if I had to go down to 5 books, those are 2 books right away. I'm like, well, Secret Six, very contained book, fantastic read every month, I would grab that. And JSA is another one that's, except for the specials, it's a very contained read. And but it gives you epic stories within that contained read. I like that. Another interesting debate here, Jim. Damage caused some serious problems when his powers went out of control. Atlantis suffered big time because of it. His story has a very real-world feel to it. They are vigilantes. They're not sanctioned. So what's okay about the amount of property damage they can cause? Who okayed that? What gives them the right to make that decision? His kind of feeling, I think that we often look to religion for quick forgiveness. We see this, it's actually funny that we just talked about Secret Six.
Yeah.
He's looking towards this Gog, forget penance. He's not even, at the moment, he doesn't even seem really remorseful. He's kind of like, look, I'm pretty again, so I don't care what I did. It's kind of like all's forgiven. He's completely forgotten to even care that he destroyed all that stuff. It's really interesting that just vanished. Magic tricks that cure you don't mean all is forgiven and you should forget what you did. I really got into this thematically. That all of a sudden he thinks that because his scars are gone from battle, it's not as simple as that. Because when people really start making him see reality, that's what's causing his violent lash outs. Deep down, he knows there's something wrong. And we see it in this as we continue to develop with him. That's what's really cool about it. If everything was so happy, nothing anybody could say to him would get him to lash out.
Right. And
he doesn't totally buy it himself.
And we're talking, with mentioning of religion and all that type of stuff with him. That opening panel with him was just really cool, where it's just him, his arms outstretched. He had just the solid white background. He's got the, hey, everything's great look, And I ate that up because immediately, just especially spreading the word of God. I had just those preachers that you see on the TV, the television evangelists, just out there, hemming and hawing and preaching and doing it.
And what? Go ahead and say it.
I almost said it, but I called it.
And whatnot.
It started to come out.
I can feel the build up. I'm like, chick.
I caught it though.
I wanted to hear it though.
Well, that's rule number 1, man. Always leave and want more.
I'm sorry. I couldn't. It's funny. I could see the build. That tells you, wait, after 146 recordings, I'm starting to read your body language and how you're going about.
I'm going to have to change up.
I don't get this when we do it on Skype. I don't get this kind of. It's more fun to record with you in person. Talking about different generations, Stargirl, Maxine, and Black Lightning's daughter all add that layer of innocence. Kind of like what Kitty Pryde did for the early X-Men, Jim. They tend to see more black and white because they haven't gone through as many horrors. There's something charming about that. Stargirl knows and trusts the members of the JSA from all of her adventures with them. Damage is operating under self-interest and not looking beyond that. I see his side of it. This horrible issue with his face has been cleared, but what does that mean? I love that as a reader the first run, I know immediately who she went to get. That was, I had no doubt in my mind. I'm like, I know who she's going after.
See, I didn't know. That was the thing. I didn't know at all. And I liked when I found out who she was going after.
And I think that's nice that there's that connection with you. They had a good, strong relationship in the original run. He kind of took Stargirl under his wing and became kind of like a big brother to her. And when his betrayal kind of happened, it hurt her the most. So it's interesting that at this point that their relationships kind of come to the point where she feels she can go to him again. I liked that moment. It was very powerful. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Dr. Midnight Nightlight segment was something that felt real as well. It's common knowledge that this hero regained his sight. It would be. I mean, this is a hero. Today's media be all over the place. People would flock to this man to try and get the same cures. We see this on TV all the time. People hope for miracles. Imagine if it really started to happen. When my mom was going through breast cancer, for example, I would have been there with her in an instant, saying, hey, over here, where's this Gog fella?
Yeah.
Let's see him. What happens when you don't believe in the God that they want miracles from? How tough would it be to be cured, but to be unsure if you would be even doing the right thing? Because he's on the other side. So, at this point, he's seeing the other side of the coin right now. You got these people coming to you looking for guidance to Gog. What after effects is this going to have? How is this going to turn out? It's interesting. Just a side note, that Winterset Elementary School is a real school in Columbus. I like that tiny little detail. I looked it up on the internet. I'm like, is that a real school? I wouldn't have cared if it was fake, but it was just kind of cool that there actually is a Winterset Elementary School. Citizen Steel is really interesting in this segment. He reminds me of what I like about Red Tornado, Cyborg, Robot Man. Like Red Tornado, what works for him is when you see him with the kids, you can tell he loves that connection and would love to physically feel what he does emotionally. And these are, his nieces and nephews, right? He says he'll do whatever Gog wants to get his wish, but there's a line for everyone. Well, there's a line for everyone with a good heart.
Yeah.
You're not going to cross it. A point where you have to say no, even if your desires don't hurt anyone else. Sometimes the price is too much. Nice foreshadowing.
And here's the thing. This is, for me, where I really started thinking, okay, why isn't Citizen Steel getting healed? Why isn't he getting his wish? And for part of me was thinking that, one, Gog doesn't want to heal him, because it's his desire to be healed that keeps him loyal to Gog. Then another part of me is thinking Gog realizes that if he heals him, then will that healing be enough to keep him loyal? It's the Gog. It's the self-serving interests of Gog. Then I'm thinking, okay, is that the reason behind it, or is it a question of faith, or is it a question of not wanting to? So it's like, every time I read it, every time I think about it, I think a different side of it. I think the self-serving interest of Gog. Then I think, okay, it's not. It's a question of faith. That Steel just wants to be healed, not to help people or not to be a good guy. And then I was like, no, but he wants to play with his niece and nephew. So he's got noble intentions for why he wants to do this.
That's interesting, though, that Gog would pick healing people based on how it would benefit him.
Yeah.
It's an interesting theory. I don't know if I think that's 100% the case, because I guess part of me believes that Gog sort of believes he's doing the right thing.
Yes, it's...
But Damage could easily have been healed for the purpose of he recognized a soul that would then go out.
Yeah.
And he has manipulated. I mean, there's clearly manipulation of Damage to get Damage to do this type of thing that he wants. And we'll talk about it more as we go into this issue. So Damage has clearly been manipulated, and we see that Gog stays out of certain things and waits to pull out Damage until... We'll talk about that. We'll get to it.
And you think about it, Steel, if he heals Steel, Steel will stop being JSA, he'll stop being the limelight, he'll stop everything, and he'll go back to his normal life that he had before.
He'll stop having the desire.
It's... So
how would that help Gog?
Right.
Whereas even Dr. Midnight, Dr. Midnight's on the other side, but look at what it's doing to the general. It's acting as an inspiration for the general public to come and seek out Gog, to worship Gog. Mm-hmm. Sand, for example, you've taken away his ability to foreshadow bad things that could happen. It takes away precognition of what
radar of what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right. That not only affects that, but it might affect his understanding of Gog. Shows that he didn't have 100% understanding of how his other powers work. So that's interesting that he didn't take away his sand powers as well, but took away his night terrors, which added the mystery. That's interesting. I didn't look at it that way, but that's an interesting little side story on this. Damage has it all wrong. He's using Gog's situation to become more popular and to sign autographs more than do anything noble. This JSA reformed to make better heroes in the wake of 52. Courtney wants to live by that code. I really like the bits where she told him that his new face is a mask hiding the real him. He was truly becoming a hero before Gog cured him. I like that. I knew when he lashed out at Courtney that his powers, with his powers at that point, that Atom Smasher would get involved. I loved their friendship in the first series. Seeing Atom Smasher in this moment, I hope we see him come back to the JSA. I love Atom Smasher. The artwork when we see him pin down Damage was dynamic.
Yeah.
It was really just a cool moment. Interesting that Damage on the surface believes Gog is right, and then his behavior again shows that he's listening to Stargirl and Atom Smasher, because he really is taking in what they're saying. He's not ignoring them, Courtney tried to talk to him the easy way. Adam Smasher teaching him the hard way, man. Slap it. Bam!
Sometimes you gotta...
Talk with the fists.
Yeah.
Wow, did the meeting between the Kingdom Come Superman and our Diana really read great. Especially if you consider where Diana's been in recent years. Okay, Max Lorth's murder, or death, however you want to call it. Infinite Crisis. How she found herself in the current path she's on in 52. She really is in a place to listen and offer advice to a man who's being misunderstood, and is perhaps misunderstanding his own role. She has a chance to add something to this man out of her own experience. We were talking about Wonder Woman before. It's cool because I think Diana's in a place now where she can handle hearing about an alternate version of herself that gave up peace. Diana has an interesting perspective. She's a true hero, yet also understands that sometimes no other choice but to draw a sword. Great thing about her journey is the path of learning when it is right for her and those around her. They both offer each other something to think about in that case, and she hopes he will never have to make that decision. Foreboding, to where things are going. And that panel on him, I'm like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Damage has become so vain. You better not have given me a bruise. It shows an interesting thing. We become stronger people when we learn to accept and compensate for our own flaws. Our strength comes not only from learning how to utilize what is best in us, but how to overcome those things that we are all subconscious about. When that struggle is removed from him, he becomes something less. He also knows it is why, he continues to lash out. I think he knows I'm diminished on some level. I am flawed. I'm not... I'm missing something.
Right. There's like a thing with people who do plastic surgery where, they'll get one thing fixed and then they got to get another thing and another thing and another thing. And it's never perfect. It's never to the point where they're thinking, and you look at their face, there's absolutely nothing wrong with their face, but they think there is. Like, oh, look at that little wrinkle, or look at that little smudge there. And it's the same type of, thing that Grant.
Right.
Grant's got going, that it's, he's not. First when I was reading, I was thinking, okay, vanity. I'm like, no, it's not a vanity. It's a weakness of character, and that's a hard thing for a person to recognize and for a person to accept and a person to move on from. And I'd like to see these sequences that showed him with Adam Smasher and everything, because it was funny. Once he showed up, I was like, oh, okay, that should be, yeah. And as I'm reading this, going, oh, I know how this is going to end, and this is not going to end well. And, of course, it didn't between the two of them. So I was like, ooh, it's, we're talking build-up. And I said at the beginning of when we started recording how I was chomping at the bit. These were some of the stuff that really just got it going, because you're like, it's building and building, and okay, it's about to throw down now.
Well, the hard part about plastic surgery is you make a good point there. The difference here is, remember, his face was perfectly healed. Huge difference in plastic surgery, because plastic surgery, when you're done with it, it's not perfect. And people see their plastic surgery, then they want to go back and do it again and keep adjusting it until they're looking for perfection. That's part of the problem with it. I think plastic surgery is great for people who have like severe scarring and burns, things like that. If it can help those people to, clear some of that up and, be happier with themselves, I'm all for it. I'm not anti-plastic surgery. But I think some people look for perfection when, they should look to be the perfect them. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting message here. I liked the whole theme there. I think we all do that, though, to a certain extent. We all try to correct our flaws and try to, get rid of them. And it's something... Go ahead.
Flaws? I don't have any flaws. I'm perfect as is.
Wait till we get to a voicemail later. We'll go from that. But it's a whole community out to get you. It is funny. I like that whole... It read very real. I love the respect Adam Smasher shows for Al Pratt. The picture of the two of them together. This is someone he looks up to. What's interesting here is Al made similar mistakes when he joined with Black Adam. He looked for an easy way, and when I'm talking about Al, I'm talking about Adam Smasher at this point, because we got two Als. He looked for an easy way out and found himself caught in a black hole downward spiral that it was hard to, and he's still crawling out of. This character development makes it all so great to see him in this role, trying to help the son of the man he looked up to avoid making his mistakes. Being the big brother here. I loved this sequence. He's finding flaws. Adam Smasher's finding flaws in what happened to Midnight, Sand, and Power Girl. On the surface, all got their wishes, but were diminished by them. Power Girl got sent to the wrong place.
Yeah.
And Vanity Smurf said it all. That was a great line from him when he was talking about Damage. That, again, Damage can't argue the point. Lashes out with violence and personal attacks, even calling Al a wannabe and his dad a dwarf. He lashes out to the point where he destroys every memory of his father. The battle between the two kicks off, stopped by the JSA. This fight, again, felt like a fight between two brothers. There's been many times when I wanted to say the right thing to my own brother. And frustration on both sides of us have led to this, because my brother and I are two very different people. But I love my brother dearly, and, there's a lot of respect there. But thankfully, we're in a much better place now. But we've been at knockdown dragouts like this. It read so real to me. Now, here's the funny bit. Magog shows up right in the heat of the battle, right when Damage was at the point where he would sever ties with the team and create a further with, or be reasoned with by the team where they could turn him over. The big guns are here at this point. Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, these are people who might actually be able to reach him. Magog comes in. Oh, Gog said it's time for you to come on back. Take Grant away from him before the team could reach out to him. Gog knew and wanted all of this to happen.
Oh, big time. And I love the fact that when Magog shows up and they address him as and our man addresses him as David, he corrects him.
Grant. Oh, I'm sorry, Magog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
Magog now.
I'm Magog now. And he, he didn't even answer to David anymore. I was like, ooh, there you go. And it's led right from the Magog special. I was like, sweet.
Yeah, totally. You're right, and totally from that special, embracing that role. You're right. I didn't catch that way. You're right. That is cool.
Yeah.
How that kind of blended in too. Very cool. Sand and Terrific are each finding clues to what is happening. Hawkman's own duality and stubbornness come up, which is really consistent with the character, which I like. If Carter Hall had continued studying, he may have taken a different path in this affair. Instead, the warrior was appealed to, which I think was a choice made by Gog. To all of a sudden, let me appeal to the warrior so that way he can't pull up the history and all that. Sand let them know that in 7 days there will be no Earth. With each step of Gog, the Earth screams. And Damage and David are hopeful that the team can reconcile when they realize they were on the wrong side. They should have been with them all along. Northwind and the crew show up. This is a reunion for Hawkman, who became their adversary due to Black Adam. When Northwind brings and offers food, he uses this opportunity to tell, Gog uses this opportunity to tell all to get on their knees and worship him. Yeah, Hawkman's going to go for that. Great cliffhanger ending. I got to comment on the Geek Out Jerry Ordway 2-page spread from Earth 2. It takes me back to the classic. I would so read a monthly about this Earth. I'm loving this JSA, but I'm saying I would love to read that Earth monthly. So if they ever consider doing another book, that team, bring them in there. I'd love to see the adult Robin and that type of thing continue on. Jim, next week we're going to talk. We're going to continue this discussion. Let's talk JSA because it's been a while since we haven't really heavily delved into JSA. Let's talk JSA 21 and 22 and kind of wrap up this epic storyline. Because 22, I believe that's it, isn't it? Is this the final issue of this arc?
I think so.
Yeah, so that's a good one. We can do the next 2 issues and kind of delve into that. We're going to also talk JLA, the 2 issues of that one, the one introducing the milestone characters and the issue following it. So we can kind of really delve into these 2 team books. We haven't done a lot with JLA and JSA for a while, and they're 2. JLA is a book I'm really enjoying too, so we can kind of do a nice little hefty segment on those 2 next week and some more speeding bullets. So, cool.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Dave Jenkins. I'm Homer Jedi. I'm off the forum. I was on the Comic Book Resources website the other day, and they had an article about some of the best comic-related gifts to give to people, and I've always been interested in taking what people would give. And if money was an issue, what would the 2 of you give to a comic fan for a Christmas present? And while we're on the subject, what's been the best comics-related present that each of you have received? In reference to Superman Secret Origin, I've read about that lately, and I'm hyped about that. Jeff Johns, everything I'm reading of his seems to be just knocked out of the ballpark. And I'm really happy about his statement of Superboy coming back to some extent or some degree. The cover to issue 2 with him and the Legion of Superheroes, that the 14-year-old fanboy was just jumping inside of me. That was it. I just wanted to call real quick and leave the comments and see what you guys thought would make good Christmas presents for this year if money wasn't an issue. y'all have a good week, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Let's go with this first question. If money wasn't an object, Jim, what would you like to give to a comic fan as a gift? What do you think would be a great gift for a comic fan?
It's funny. It depends on who I'm giving the gift to. If it was like, say, a spouse or loved one or something like that, it would probably a little bit more practical type gift. Maybe like a full set of the drawer boxes if they didn't have drawer boxes. That way they can get rid of their longs and just go completely to drawer. If it was just like a Superman collector, it would be either like a rare issue of Superman or some special Superman type book. Or if I'm just giving it to just general like friends who buddies, it would maybe be either an issue I knew, like a limited series or something like that I knew they didn't have, the hardcover version or an absolute version of it, or even something as simple as just like an individual issue that I knew they were missing from their collection or something like that.
You're right. It does depend on the collector, though, because like original pages of artwork, from the original stories, I think for some collectors would be like candy. Scripts, original scripts, things like that are very cool. I would also say things like sketches from creator. If they've got a favorite artist, a sketch from the favorite artist, or a commission from a favorite artist, a full-blown commission. Those type of things are very cool because they're very personalized. The other thing I would go with, though, for some fans, things like an absolute, of a favorite story arc, or maybe even an arc like Long Halloween. One of the reasons why I selected Long Halloween for episode 50 is it's an absolute that I bought off of a story that I read in '96. And it went from '96 to '97, so it's been over a decade. I haven't read the story in ages, so I'm like, especially with the kind of prep we put into the show, I'm like, unless what we do it on the show, I'm never going to get a chance to read this. But those type of things, like I read it in 2 days and plowed through it because it was such an enjoyable read. And I always do that before we do it on the show. But that to me would be one I would give easily to a Batman fan in an instant. Absolute Long Halloween.
Yeah.
Honestly, you probably would have gotten it I didn't know that you didn't have it. So that would have been probably the gift that you would have received, would have been Absolute Long Halloween. Because to me, the Absolute volumes, when you hold them, they feel so substantial. The pages, they're on high quality paper. The binding is this high quality binding. I mean, everything about it feels like a special book. The pages are oversized. The artwork looks dynamic. I would definitely pick favorite artists out of that for people. If somebody's a Jim Lee fan, I'd give them, Hush or For Tomorrow. If it was, an Alex Ross fans, Kingdom Come. Fans who like epic crossovers, I'd give them Crisis. Those type of things. There's individual Ronin, for Frank Miller fans, was just put out, and Dark Knight Returns is out. So, those are the types of things, gifts, things that people on a budget normally wouldn't buy for themselves. I would be... especially if they missed it the first time around, those are the type of things I'd probably get them. But I don't know. It's really, you're right. It would depend on what they like collecting, and that would be the case. Some issues of a run that they've been really trying hard to find would be kind of a cool thing if you knew they didn't have them. So I think it's kind of hard to make a blanket statement on that too, which is I agree with your point 100%. You'd really have to know the fan and their tastes. For me, he actually asked another question too. It's a two-part one. What was your favorite comic-related gift? I don't know if I have a favorite one. I think one of the things that I've always genuinely liked are when people surprise me with things that I didn't know were out there. Obviously I'm thinking of the most recent Christmas versus I don't know, any comic-related gift to me is to me a compliment because it shows that somebody's really trying hard to get something from me, even if they get me something that I already have. It kind of shows to me that the person's really trying to cater and get me something that I would like. But I got this year from my friend Chris, I got the Watchmen book by Dave Gibbons. I didn't even know it was out. They have a brand new one. It's an anecdotal Watchmen book that, he goes through the art and you get to see the conceptual art straight on through. And I'm a big fan of those kind of books because they're great books they're coffee table books, which, I've talked about on the show before. I like those because you can periodically page through them, and every time you get something new out of them, you can read, certain chapters and certain sections of it, any order that you want, and just kind of really enjoy the experience. But it's not a book that I would necessarily normally buy for myself, so it was kind of a cool surprise So that type of thing is fun. But I don't know any comic gift I've ever gotten. I've gotten action figures and things like that from people before that I wouldn't normally buy. So it's really a lot of things that I wouldn't normally get myself that are surprise gifts that I'm like, I'm avoiding them deliberately because I'm trying to maintain some form of budget. But to get them as a holiday gift and a surprise, I've gotten Hero Clicks before, I've gotten comic books before, I've gotten graphic novels before from people, things that I'd never had or tried. That those are kind of fun gifts, surprise gifts. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Any comic gifts good for me?
I know anything's good.
I don't know if I have a
it's
favorite.
All good.
Do you have a favorite one? I mean, one that's something that stands out to you, like wow, that was really a cool gift or something like that. I don't know.
The first Wolverine limited series that he had. That when I first read it, I had borrowed it from a kid I was went to school with, and so I didn't actually own it, and I was I talked about it. My folks like, I think I'm going to try to find it, and all that stuff. And then I didn't pick it up for some reason. I don't even remember why I didn't try to find it. And this was a couple years after it was. Well, Mom and Dad had gone to the one local shop, and actually they found the full thing, and I got it for Christmas one year. So that was kind of neat, opening up the Christmas and seeing the run there. So.
It was a cool gift for me. I'm a big fan of the artwork of John J. Muth and the work of J.M. DeMatteis. He did Moonshadow, which I believe it was originally an epic series released by Marvel, but then it came over to Vertigo. I don't remember how that whole process worked. So forgive me if I'm off on that for anyone that's listening is like banging their head against her. But they released, before it went under the Vertigo banner, it was one of the companies, and I'd have to take a look at it. It might have been Graffiti, it might have been somebody else. I've got the hardcover collection, and that's what was the gift. It was at a time where it was during college. I didn't have the money to purchase it. Signed and numbered. It was limited to 1,000 maybe. It might have been even a smaller print run. I'm just guessing at the moment. I'd have to pull it out to actually look at it. The cool thing about it was, though, I had never read it. I had gotten into John J. Muth's artwork from M. He did a version of M, where his was like the painting style, very similar to what you like about Alex Ross. His painting style it got at many times photorealistic in the way that he drew it. And there were I remember this beach ball in M that looked real. Which sounds like a goofy thing to pick out, but if you go through the whole story of M, there were just multiple moments where you saw things and you're like, did he take a snapshot of that or did he paint it? And the whole thing was painted, so there was nothing, so it was just, I remembered it looked like a snapshot of it. The story was brilliant, though. It was a murder mystery and all that, very cool. So he did the mystery play with Grant Morrison, which was a one-shot, just very, very unique art style. So my mom got that for me. She went to the comic shop, and it was one of those things. It's one of the nice things about comic shops at times. The owner knew me so well that he said he's been eyeing this for months. He said this would be, something that she called him up, and he held it aside for her.
Oh, cool.
And it was very cool. It's hard nowadays because I think unless you've got a strong relationship with your comic shop owner. But back in those days, it was real. There were more comic shops around. If that makes sense. There aren't as many now in our area. We used to have a ton, and it's really the amount have shrunk down. So it's interesting. But back at that time, that was my favorite. That probably is one of the most, because it was my mom that did it, and I have a special bond with my mom and comics because she's always nurtured this hobby of mine. So for her to go to a comic shop, she doesn't go to comic shops.
Yeah, I know. That is a cool thing.
For her to do that,
Yeah.
it was a very personal gift to do that and to actually inquire with the owner. Tells you how much I was there, though, the owner knew who I was. And I didn't have a whole lot of money, so I was there a lot, but I wasn't there spending a ton of money. So it just goes to show you that you didn't have to be spending a ton for the owner to know who you were. It was a cool experience. I don't always have that experience at comic shops. Some of them it's very much like a revolving door. You go in and out. You don't feel like they care about you or anything like that. But sometimes we have very good comic shop experiences. When I run into Cameron Merkler from DCB Service, I've seen him at multiple conventions now. He knows who I am by name.
Yeah,
that kind of personal, connection. I'm very loyal to DCBService.com, not just because they sponsor the show. It's really I was loyal to Cameron before they sponsored our show because of the fact that the guy knows who you are. Over on CGS, the owner of the comic shop that they grew up in. That guy, when I went in there, he was multiple times was calling me by my first name after he heard it once. That just goes, he's the type of guy who cared, which is why, when he passed on, the heartstrings went out immediately, not just for them, but for me. I didn't know the guy as well as they did. But I'm like, this guy went out of his way to get to know me in the short time I was in his shop. That, to me, is those kind of moments. So I guess that particular book, that Moonshadow book, because it's so connected with me in a very personal way with the story. It's a cool, interesting little tangent. Superboy. Are you excited about the potential Superboy being back in continuity for Superman?
Yes, big time.
Yeah.
Oh, huge. I want to see, and I actually want to see Superboy stories, because partially in my back of my head I'm thinking, if we bring back Clark as Superboy, we may get Connor back. We may get the other Superboy returning, or we may get something similar to that, and especially with the whole new Krypton story arc that's going on around, there's definitely possibilities of that, and there's teases and all that type of images. So I'd love to have the fact that to bring that whole mythos and whatnot back. If
Connor's not already back, we're definitely going to see him in Blackest Night.
Oh, definite.
Yeah, because Jeff Johns likes him. So I mean, we're gonna in some capacity. I will be shocked if we don't see that character, because Blackest Night would be the perfect spot to pull him in.
And that'd be the most painful spot to pull him in as well.
Oh, yeah, especially for like Wonder Girl and all that.
Wonder Girl and Tim. Oh,
yeah.
And plus, you figure Tim's got his parents. Especially we're going to see Mr. Drake. We're going to see the dad come back in Blackest Night. We have to. Just the way he died. They still reference to how he died, and the fact that Tim is now Tim Wayne. So the zombie version dad's going to come back. You've dropped your name. You've forgotten about me, so I'm nothing now to you. I don't exist anymore. Is that it?
You're going to see that MO. Are they going to play off of stuff like that? That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. That's something they got to have in there.
I'm so curious about that series. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see what coming back. But yeah, I'm really anxious for Secret Origin. The one reason why I'm even more anxious for it is because of how good Green Lantern Secret Origin was. So when you've got a series like that, it's like Green Lantern Rebirth is fueling my excitement for Flash Rebirth because of how much that honored the history of the Green Lanterns. And it seems like every time you get more tidbits about Flash Rebirth, it's like everybody's going to be in there. They're going through the whole history of the Flashes. So there's going to be something for Wally fans and Max Mercury fans. And it just sounds like it's going to be, which, I mean, Max Mercury is a huge part of Wally and Bart's history. So, they're clearly going back to, I'm assuming they're going to do the Quicks as well, Johnny and Jesse Quick to a certain level. In their history and it's going to be really interesting to see how deep they go into this. So, Secret Origin, because Green Lantern Secret Origin added so much of a tease to Blackest Night, I'm wondering what kind of teases that's going to have to future storytelling with Clark now. It's not. I don't think it's just going to be an origin. I think it's going to be a setting up of events for Superman as well. So I think it's going to be the must-read story as a prequel and a prelude to events for Clark for time to come afterwards. Very similar to how the Secret Origin was to Blackest Night. That's cool. So I like that kind of stuff. Good phone call.
Hey guys, it's Al Fidano, Rebus021 Forums. How you been? Just want to say I love the short mini podcast, the 2-hour one that you did the other day. I love how you guys have 2 hours as a short one. Anyway, just wanted to talk about what you guys were talking about the other day, the Superman books. I know they're saying like Superman's not going to be in action for a year. It's going to be a different storyline. I have to say, I don't care. I recently started getting the Superman books again since they started doing the triangles. I've been loving them. They've been some of the best it's been in several years, I think. And you know what? I'd rather have them use action for the storyline rather than have another spin-off book we have to buy. Jeff Johns, James Robinson, Greg Rucka, I trust them. If they have a plan, I'm sure it's going to be good. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping it is, but I'm willing to try them. All right, that's it. Have a good show. Talk to you guys again, and hopefully I'll see you in New York in February. Bye.
Clark right now, I'm Clark happy.
Oh, yeah, definitely Superman happy here. And it's weird because I think about how it's going to be different without him in Action Comics. And I'm wondering, what are we going to see? We talked a little bit on a couple episodes ago about just, are we going to see a breakup of the marriage? Are we going to see how are they going to deal with this?
That I don't want to see.
Right. So there's so much out there. But, I think about it, I trust these writers. This is not just a fly by the seat of our pants, let's try this. This is a drawn-out plan. This is a multiple-year plan they've established for Superman. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what they're going to do. It's, if it was no names that I didn't know who these people were, then I'd be worried. But I know these writers. I know these people are passionate not only about comic book writing, but they're passionate about Superman. They are Superman fans, so they're not going to ruin, or just treat this half-heartedly. They are just as loyal and passionate as we are about the comics that they're writing. So it's like, I trust these people.
Yeah, it's Greg Rucka said in one of the interviews too that it was on Newsarama. He made mention that he said that even though it's going to be two other characters in Superman is going to be driving why this is happening, and it is going to feel very much like a Superman book. And I'm guessing, too, that, if Superman's in space, we are going to be getting Superman's supporting cast. We're going to be seeing Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, the Daily Planet. So it's still going to be Metropolis, and we're going to be seeing the reactions to Superman not being in these other characters in his role. So it's not going to be completely divorced from, these aren't going to be adventures that are taking place in San Francisco. These are going to be, adventures that are taking place in Metropolis with those themes. I agree. I can understand the people that are being tentative, because I am at the moment, too, because we haven't seen it. So it's hard to sit there and say, wow, this is great, when it's not there yet. Like, I want to read it first. But he said the key thing that's keeping me going, Greg Rucka, James Robinson, Jeff Johns, the fact that when we talked to Jamal Igle, this is a multi-year plan, at least 3 years of stories are coming out of this, so this isn't something where, like, hey, we're throwing Superman in space, and, there's no reason for doing it, we're just shaking things up a little bit. There's actually a storytelling reason for this. Whether or not I like it, I've got to read it. But I'm excited because of the team. So he's kind of echoing kind of where my mind's at right now as well. It's the team right now is delivering for me. Now, I can understand for people that the team aren't delivering for right now. There's people on our forum who've mentioned that the storyline right now for them is turning them a little off of Clark. Well, if that's the case, then you're probably not as excited as I am, who I feel Clark's super heroic right now, and I'm really enjoying not only his development, but the increased development of his supporting cast, and Supergirl stepping up to play Krypto. Krypto was brilliantly handled and all that. But Clark is a character who I'm really enjoying New Krypton and how Clark is handling the Kryptonians, for example, and that whole happening, and how we're seeing a man who is very torn over the fact that these people, they're his legacy. This is a chance to get to know people who knew his birth parents. His father's brother is one of the people. His aunt.
His aunt, yeah.
These are people who directly knew his father. And not only them, you got to figure who else out of the Kryptonians that are there, with how many Kryptonians are back, knew his dad, can give him an idea of who these people were, some answers, other than just crystals that he's pulling from the Fortress of Solitude. To be able to actually sit down and chat with people with that kind of history has to be something that, for him, as an opportunity he hasn't even had a chance to address.
Yeah, and something I thought of that got me thinking. Another whole line that Clark could be going through is, you figure he lost Chris Kent. Now he's been introduced to other Kryptonian females around him. That's not his direct family. So, not even thinking he could fall in love, because he's in love with Lois. But artificial insemination. He could foster families. He could actually have a kid now, and it could be his kid. Granted, it wouldn't be his and Lois's, but it still would be his kid. So there's a whole other story that they never mentioned.
I don't see him going there. I think the opportunity with Chris was an opportunity that he and Lois could have take care of this child together, because he connected with Chris so much, because Chris was a lone Kryptonian. Alone.
Yeah.
And this was Clark's chance to take him under his wing the way Jonathan Kent did. So he was directly connecting with the Kents in that storyline versus the Kryptonians. in the sense that he was collecting with his own childhood experience. The Kents took him in. He has a chance to take this lone Kryptonian in. I don't know that the motivation would be the same for him to do something in that route. I guess, maybe you're right. Maybe that'd be an interesting storytelling. I don't know. I guess I took the Chris story in a very different way. It wasn't so much that Clark was seeking to have a child at that point, as much as he saw this kid's story so much echoing his own when they first met, that it made sense that he would want to give this kid the same opportunities that he had. Because look how well that worked out for him. What kind of person he grew to be, what kind of life he grew to have, and how much he respected those parents. I saw that as him wanting to be the Kents, not wanting to be Kryptonian.
True.
So that was interesting. I don't know. I don't know if Chris would. I think more interesting to Clark right now is, where is Chris?
Yeah.
I think he connected with Chris in such a way that he wants Chris back at the moment, versus necessarily shooting for another child. Now, maybe down the road, it would be an interesting offshoot story. Or if the opportunity being presented by the Kryptonians would be something he and Lois would have to have a discussion about. I don't see them going that route, though.
Oh, I
see them more likely to adopt one that needed a family than necessarily going the route of desperately needing to have a child that way.
Yeah, but and just so there's all clarity here, I don't see them wanting to do that or him pursuing that or anything like that. I'm just saying there are these other things that are got to be flying through Clark's head now. It's,
and you're thinking beyond the story too.
Yeah, I'm thinking way beyond. I'm even
daydreaming in an afternoon as he think of something like this. And I do that too. Even
him hanging out with other Kryptonian, not just to learn to people who knew his father, just hang out with another Kryptonian and just sit there, talk to them, and he's got to be thinking in his head, maybe I'll find a new best friend among that group. I'll teach him about American baseball. They'll teach me about Kryptonian laser tag or whatever they did for fun.
Like he connected with Mon-El.
Like he did with Mon-El. He's thinking these type of things. He's got to be thinking this just because that's a normal reaction for somebody who's had nobody. Yeah, he has friends. Yeah, he has family in his life, but he's never had one of his own.
Right.
Only one he's really had is his little cousin, and that is a little cousin. He doesn't.
There's Mon-El too.
Mon-El, but how long was Mon-El around? Mon-El was around, boom, and gone. So it's.
Well, they had a pretty nice story with Mon-El there. Though.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they didn't have a good story. I'm just saying you think about it. This is his chance now to, to actually develop a friendship and a solid bond and with one of his own.
But he doesn't. The problem with Superman is he just doesn't have enough downtime for that. That becomes kind of the catch-22 of being a superhero. Superman has too many responsibilities. It's one of the reasons why a lot of the stuff that's happening in New Krypton is getting too much for him, in the sense that you've got all these Kryptonians running around now. He can't possibly keep up with every little thing that they're doing. He's trying, but these people move as fast as he does. So they're doing things right now that he has no foreknowledge of. They're making their own moves on his villains to try and take them down to make a better... Really, they're protecting themselves in their own mind. Let's squash these bugs before they come after us. And where is that going to stop? But that's the problem he's running into now. You've got a real conundrum. These guys are all as powerful as he is. Look at how much trouble 3 of them were. Now there's a whole colony of them.
There's a whole mess of them, yeah.
What was it? What did they say, 100,000? Is that what it is? Something like that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember the number.
Yeah. There was an insane number of Kryptons. Let's say it's 1,000.
Yeah.
I thought it was higher than that, though. I really thought it was like an insane amount. But, okay, let's go off 1,000. Even 100. 100 Kryptonians.
Yeah. It's still a ridiculous number that there's no way you can control that. Yeah.
So it's an overwhelming number, and these people don't have, he's learning real fast, they were not raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent. They were not, and forget Jonathan and Martha Kent, they were not raised to respect humans the way that he was. Any parent who respects life, and respects human life, there's a huge difference. I think a lot of them respect Kryptonian life, but don't respect any life that could possibly cause harm to Kryptonians. And the key word there is possibly.
And here's the other thing I kind of see them dealing with. It's how much respect and admiration do we have for a cow? Or do we have for a fish? Or do we have for an ant that crawls? It's
a lot of them view us as cattle.
Right. We're just nothing. We are so far beneath them that they don't recognize that we are sentient beings. And that is the big thing. Clark does recognize us as people. He recognizes us as humans. And they even, constantly are saying stuff to him about, you've been influenced too much, undue influence by them. By your time with them. You don't see things as a Kryptonian
And again,
does.
the key word, them.
Right.
Depersonalizing them, not viewing them as individuals, viewing them as a collective group of people who are, lesser. That's anytime you start using pronouns like that for a group, you really are putting them down to a different level.
And also, you think about the one issue.
It's a very human story.
And there's just so many just things that are popping in my head about just different scenes where they really just try to debase Clark's faith in humanity, if you will, and the priority of him dealing, especially like with all the personal stuff he's got going on with his family right now. They minimize that, saying, "Why are you even thinking that? You should be revering in the legacy that was your father, that was Jor-El, instead of thinking about these humans."
So a lot of your thoughts are leaping beyond the pages.
Oh yeah, I'm going well beyond, just
and
what
I like
I'm
doing
reading.
that. I like doing that too.
It's just something. You get stuck in. As you're sitting there doing whatever you're doing, and you just start thinking of different, Superman stuff, or hey, that'd be kind of neat. I wonder if they did this. I wonder about that. It's just that it's that that geek talk that you just get going, and once you start down a path, you don't stop until like, hey, how did we get here?
See, it's funny with that discussion when you were talking about that. It's funny how passionately I started thinking to myself, well, even if Clark's head went there would be like a gazillion reasons why they would go away from there again because of who he is and how much responsibility he has. I don't think he would consciously seek out having a child as being Superman because of how demanding his role is. He would want to be a good parent. He would want to be the parent that Jonathan Kent was. Whereas with Chris, he was willing, because this kid was an orphan and needed to be adopted, he was willing to try and find a way to make it work, to try and give this kid who was already there. I don't know that he would consciously do that, but it's an interesting debate. It would be interesting to see Clark go through that debate and how it would be written. I would be curious to see that as well. So I guess from that standpoint, it would be an interesting exploration. I don't think with where the storyline's going, we're going to see that anytime soon.
No, I don't.
But it does open up interesting possibilities, depending on where New Krypton goes. And if there are going to be Kryptonians on Earth and what they're looking like. Let me ask a question. Nightwing and Flamebird, do you think they're Kryptonians, or do you think they're people posing as Kryptonians?
I don't know. My initial reaction was, yes, they're Kryptonians, and then I started just some of the dialogues they've had, and sometimes we've seen appearances of them. I'm questioning whether they actually are, and or I don't know if they're trying to act, if they are Kryptonians who are trying not to have people think they're Kryptonians, but then again, they're taking up the names of heroes from Krypton, so you're like, how can they try to say they're not Kryptonians? So it's a tough call.
It's an interesting email that we got from Stephen King that I think is relevant to this discussion. I think for your discussion of Superman in the recent episode, you may have missed a key component of Allura Zor-El's motivations and why she seems so cold-blooded all of a sudden. Check back when Zor-El was curing Kara of the kryptonite poisoning that gave her the split personality. There was a definite cast-off energy that strikes Allura, of which nobody really took notice of the possible side effect. She is now likely to be having Kara's split personality issues and will be more brutal. What I really want to know, though, is what exactly a group of hyper-sensed aliens does she think she's going to fool with the hood on her spiffy new Enforcer costume and that big House of L symbol across the chest? Is that Kryptonian cloth that can't be seen through? Nah, they did away with that kind of thing in the 86 reboot. Besides, all Kryptonian senses are heightened. Guess it just must be paranoia from that kryptonite poisoning. Yeah, that's the ticket. Superman not to be in Action Comics. Okay, well, they did that precedent somewhat already in the extended run of Action Weekly. Supes was reduced to not more than a Sunday comic strip after that. Superman Away in Space, also done, and that run included some really memorable stories. See Action Annual number 2 with the Eradicator origin and surrounding issues. I guess I can give it a chance, but I agree, it took Supes and Lois the better part of 60 years to get married. Heck, wasn't it more than 5 years from engaged to married just so Lois could adjust to the idea of being married to an alien? That has evidenced a certain synergy as a couple. Let us not be hasty to lose that DC. I'm still shedding tears from the arc where artists decided to stop drawing the Martian Manhunter. Bastages! My cynical suspicion is that Soups in Space will turn out to be primarily an absent makes the heart grow fonder ploy by DC to build sales in his book, with a secondary goal building the Superman universe backstory that, while not directly related, adds to the overall dimension. Now that's interesting. I think one of the keys there is we're not losing Clark, though, because they're still going to have Superman Batman featuring Bruce and Clark, because they're considering those stories kind of like what Legends of the Dark Knight was and things like that. While they do echo things that are going on in the universe, it's still primarily a story-driven Superman-Batman book. So they already said that that's going to be staying Clark and Bruce. We're also going to be getting Clark still in Superman Secret Origin. So I think it's interesting how they're approaching this in that we're not losing Clark. I'm also wondering, Adventure Comics, are we going to see Clark? That they've been cryptic on what that series is. Obviously, the Legion's going to be involved in some sense. What's that going to look like? Are we going to see Clark there? Are we not? What's that going to look like? So I'm really curious on what we're going to be. Except if he's with the Legion, when he usually pops out with the Legion, he pops back right when he left. So that wouldn't be necessarily where we would see Clark go. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I always kind of took it that we would see Clark in the adventure.
I totally missed the Allura thing with him.
Actually, it was funny. I didn't know who it was, and now he's saying, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. And then even in the one Supergirl issue where she's comes face to face with her, and she tries to do the X-ray vision and can't. So there's something about the cloth or something. There's something that's blocking X-ray vision. So
because we haven't seen her yet.
Yeah, we did in Supergirl.
But I mean, we haven't seen her where Supergirl's had the opportunity to actually use the X-ray vision on her?
Yeah, in the most recent issue of Supergirl.
Did she use the X-ray vision on her?
Yeah, because she even commented that she couldn't see it. I could have swore I remember reading that.
You're 100% correct, and I forgot about that she actually scanned her. She's right, but who are you really, and why can't I see through your mask? Is that lead? Well, we all have secrets to keep and people to protect, don't we? And when the time is right, I'll tell you who I am. Until then, will you just call me your friend? Now, with the stuff with her mother that's going on there, do you take it that that's taking place concurrently? Or it was taking place in the past?
See, I took it that that occurred there after the mother pretty much blamed Kara for stuff that happened. And Kara flies off and she kind of goes and catches and comforts her. But we see scenes where the mother is still back in Krypton. So... in New Krypton. So I don't know if that is even the mother. That's why I'm like, yeah, that is. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. I don't know.
Or maybe it is.
Or maybe it is the split personality, and this is the other. This is the real her, and the other isn't the real her. Or there was like split into two bodies, maybe. Because there was a period where Kara was split into two bodies for a couple of her issues. So maybe we have two separate bodies even that the mom's in. I don't know.
I don't think they're gonna. I hope they don't go back to that.
I don't think they did. I kind of
like this to be somewhat, yeah.
I don't think they did. I thought this is somebody else. I was thinking maybe it's her one friend that she has that was the captain of the guards.
Yeah. But, the one we've been kind of seeing act in that role. Now, do you think... Okay, here's a question. Do you think Superwoman good or not so good?
Well, right now, she's sitting there saying how Clark and Kara have inspired her to be a Superwoman and step up and do the right thing, so that would imply she's probably bad. It's the swerve.
Yeah.
I'm leaning...
do you think that's manipulation going on?
I think it's a swerve, yeah. Like Flamebird and Nightwing, I think, are good guys. But I think and it just because I'm a bit of a skeptic, so I'm thinking it's a swerve and she's really a bad guy, and she's just trying to get on their good side, trying to get them to trust him. That's part of the reason why she's wearing the House of L symbol on the chest, because she's motivated, inspired by Clark, and great chance for her to double cross.
God, I'm wondering if that really is Nightwing.
What?
I'm wondering if that's Dick Grayson.
Dude, it can't be. He flies.
But there's ways you can. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he flies, and he also has the telekinetic stuff. So,
yeah, I don't know.
That's why I was.
Which would make sense with Battle of the. I'm just wondering time. I'm wondering time placement wise when this happens. In relation to. Yeah. They said that Nightwing and Flamebird are people we've already seen.
Yeah. See,
so I mean,
here's the thing.
Here's what I'm wondering: if that's Oracle.
Oh man, Oracle and actually is Nightwing.
I'm not saying that I'm 100% sold, so please don't take this as me going like that. But I'm wondering, is that Nightwing and Oracle?
Dude, how cool would that be? You know what?
For a year,
Yeah.
we got Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon, and Nightwing was inspired by
Nightwing, right?
Right, from those interesting. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm 100% sold on that. The powers and stuff like that, what if they're
How?
artificially...
Yeah. The whole question is how would they get it?
Right.
And all that.
We haven't seen that story yet, but I don't know. I'm not 100%, kind of like you talk about how you throw ideas out that you're...
Yeah.
I'm open to it. Part of me thinks, is that Connor? Somehow the clone of Connor? Is it somebody else? For a while there, I thought maybe Flamebird was Firehawk. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating and throwing out there. But I'm sitting with the way, like when I saw her, look at her kicking right there.
Yeah.
That looks awfully Batgirl-like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And, with the domino mask that Nightwing has. And,
It's the Nightwing mask.
yeah, see, that's like... But here's the other thing.
Uh-huh.
You look at that picture, he's got the little curl of hair in the front. He's got the Superman curl.
Right.
So that I'm like, did Connor ever have that? Because Connor was a clone of Superman. Maybe an older version of Connor would have that. So...
I don't know. We saw him with a very different haircut in
Yeah.
Titans, so I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm glad he mentioned that, because it'd be interesting to see what happens. This whole discussion of Supergirl, Superwoman, this is what I like about New Krypton right now. There's mysteries in this story that are keeping me coming back to see them. I don't want everything fleshed out right now. I want to enjoy the ride to see why are Nightwing and Flamebird doing that. And a lot of that, are they Kryptonian or not?
Yeah. See, you see the powers and you immediately think they are, but that could be the giant swerve.
Right.
Like you said, it could be artificial powers that somehow Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon had. It could be completely, Ralph and Sue Dibney come back. I don't know. It could be anybody in the DCU, and that's the cool thing. It's they're giving you tastes and teasers, and that's what that year is going to be of them in the title. We're going to learn then. So,
does New Krypton have to take place concurrently with R.I.P.? Or could it be taking place, elements of it be taking place after R.I.P.?
I personally would think New Krypton takes place after R.I.P., after Final Crisis. So a little while after Final Crisis even. So there's a chance to get everyone calmed down and the life a little bit calmer, and then bam, another thing hits.
Right. Or does it take place before, and then we're going to see the end results of this, and Superman goes into Final Crisis, and why? A lot of that's going to drive, I think, who Nightwing and Flamebird really are, and what possibilities there are as far as who they are. So that's why there's a big question mark right now: is where does this story take place? I don't need to know at the moment, because I know that in March we're going to get an explanation, I guess, or start getting an explanation post Final Crisis where all these books start fitting in. So I'm fine with that. I'm willing to wait. I want to do the read. I'm enjoying the ride right now. I like, though, that right now we've got a really cool story going on in Superman. There's a cool story going on in Wonder Woman. Cool story going on in Batman that aren't necessarily driven by being direct crossovers. Like we got that whole R.I.P. story that took place before Final Crisis. I'm glad that we're not getting Final Crisis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where everything's a connection and it's kind of fun to have more than one story. Green Lantern's got its own thing going on, and I think they said it wasn't until May or June even that we're going to see the Green Lantern books where Final Crisis took place.
Yeah, so...
because of where they're at right now. So I'm fine with that. Tell me where it fits in. It doesn't have to be concurrent.
Now, do you need, a story element, like a couple panels, or do you need just, an editor note, or how do you personally want to find out where this falls in?
Well, it depends on... I'm fine with a story note if it happens midway through an issue, but realistically, if we end an arc in Green Lantern Corps, for example, and the next issue clearly shows us that it takes place after Final Crisis, fine. Okay. Wrap up your story arc and do it that way. To answer your question, though, I'm fine if it's... I prefer a story element. It's funny, I went on my little editor's note rant, but to me, if you do it well enough in the story, you don't need the editor's note. I think where the story quickly references something, though, and you can point somebody to an issue that they might want to read, I'm very torn on that. Because going back on what I said about editor's notes, it doesn't mean I want the book littered with 700 editor's notes either. I think there's certain points where you've got to say, okay, in this book, the one editor's note we're going to put in is on this panel. This points to a critical story that you need to read. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be midway through the story, or I'm a fan of what Marvel does too at the first page, kind of filling you in, where it's just kind of one page. It says, previously, and it kind of lines everything up for you where it does. That's a nice thing too. So I'm fine if they went that route, or even a footnotes at the end. At the end of every DC issue, there's footnotes.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of, maybe put them all instead of ruining the artwork with it. Maybe if that's the driving motivation, why not at the end have a footnotes page? Point it where you want to go. I don't know. I don't know what it would look like, but I'm a fan of knowing. Like, if there's a reason to tell us where things connect together, they do it somewhere. In the story is kind of the coolest way to do it, though.
Yeah, little pages here and there and all that.
Yeah, I think there's points where the writers can do that. We'll see how they do it. We can talk about it when it actually...
When they actually do it, we'll say.
We'll talk about it, yeah. So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm not 100... I don't know that it has to be one way. I'm curious to see... It sounds like there's a plan. So I'm just going to kick back, relax, and see how it happens, and we can talk about if we were happy with how it did. That'll be a fun chat.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Kevin from Omaha. I've been listening to your show for about a year and a half now, but haven't been on your forums. I thought I'd share my thoughts on the current developments in the Superman and Batman titles. Like Sean, I'm more of a Bat guy, but ever since the Byrne era, Superman has also been a favorite character of mine. You might even say he's my Hawkman. Anyway, I think that sending Clark into space could prove to be very interesting. A similar storyline in the early post-Crisis on Infinite Earths reality had Superman exiling himself to space after he was forced to kill Zod and his fellow Kryptonian villains in the pocket universe that gave us the Matrix Supergirl. Afterward, those events haunted him so much that he expressed the darker side by taking on the guise of Gangbuster for a while. I'll never forget how Jim Harper's Guardian uncovered the dual identity by knocking the Gangbuster chest plate off to reveal the S shield underneath. Deciding he was a danger to others for this out-of-control action, Supes headed for space on a journey that eventually brought him to the Eradicator. The whole arc from Clark executing the Kryptonians, villains, to his journey into space is one of my favorite Superman stories ever. I'm not sure it's even in continuity anymore, but it was a great ride. It could be again, especially with James Robinson working on the storyline. After all, he did do a similar storyline with Starman. I don't know what this would mean for the super marriage, but I can't believe they'd actually split Lois and Clark up. I mean, just look at what happened at Marvel with Spider-Man and Mary Jane. That didn't work out too good, in my opinion, at least. I think having Clark away for a while could be a great chance to see how Lois, Martha, Clark, Jimmy, and Metropolis react. Kind of a visit back to world without Superman, in a way. On the other hand, the death of Jonathan Kent did surprise me. I've always liked the interaction between him and Clark and Martha, too, as far as that goes, in the post-Crisis world. I thought it differentiated him from Batman in a way because that was different from other things. Still, I think they've been doing a good job by making Ma a stronger character. And I have seen the concept of grief over the years used well in the Superman mythos. There's, of course, Smallville and the original Superman movie of Christopher Reeve. But one of my favorites is one of my first comics ever, Brave and the Bold, number 192, written by Mike Barr with art by Jim Apro. In that storyline, a villain named I.Q. Quimby, who's kind of a third-rate Lex Luthor, traps Superman in the past, but accidentally brings Superboy forward in time. What really stands out for me in the story is the interaction between Batman and Superboy. For example, Batman has to deal with Superboy's rash behavior. In fact, there's one point where Superboy uses heat vision on a villain's gun, and Batman has to chastise him because the gun might explode. And in fact, Superboy seems almost Superboy Prime-like in the story sometimes. But when his eventual frustration with Batman forces him to run away to Smallville and discover the graves of Ma and Pa Kent, it's a very touching scene when Batman has to comfort him. Likewise, in the past, Superman appears in his own old room and can't bear to hear Pa calling him to breakfast, so he flies away. So when the emotions are right, I think the whole concept of losing Pa could be a good thing, but I just don't. And I'm optimistic though, because we have Jeff Johns and James Robinson on the case. As for the Bat titles, I will miss the solo spotlights on Robin and Nightwing in their own titles, and I'd hope Dick sticks with the Nightwing identity. I liked the fact that he has developed it over the last about 30 years or so. I've also liked the contrast that has developed between Bruce, Dick, and Clark. It always seemed kind of fitting that Nightwing was a Kryptonian name that he chose. I'll also definitely miss the Birds of Prey. It's been a great title since the earliest Chuck Dixon days through the Gail Simone era and into the present day. Still, I do have mixed feelings about the possibility of Barbara Gordon becoming Batgirl again. In a lot of ways, she is always going to be my Batgirl. I really liked her in that role. On the other hand, the whole Oracle concept is just so unique that it would be a shame to lose it. As far as what I'd like to see come out of this in terms of Bat titles, a mainstream Batman and Robin would be great to fill the void. It could focus primarily on Tim, but I think one thing that has been missing always is Tim's interaction with Batman, especially, even in and out of costume. There just hasn't been enough over the years. It's been more of Tim solo and Bruce solo. It's just never been enough of them together for me, like the old days of Bruce and Dick. I just like to see more of them together. I also might be interested in a Batman family book that would come out, maybe every couple months or every quarterly or whatever. It'd be expanded into maybe 80 pages or 64 at least, where they spotlights Tim and Dick and Barbara, and even Alfred and Commissioner Gordon could have spotlights.
I'd like you to start first with his commentary on the whole Batman situation, just because that's fresh in my mind because we just talked about it. From everything I've been reading, as far as what titles it looks like we're going to get out of this, and this is not 100% set in stone. This is just from what I've been picking up from forums, from DC Nation, or whatever, what it looks like. We're obviously going to still have Batman and Detective. I don't think that looks like it's going to change. Outsiders is not Batman and the Outsiders anymore. It's just the Outsiders yeah. With an Owlman involved in it, which is interesting considering the teaser image from Tony Daniel has in the case an Owlman styled bat outfit.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know what that means or what that's going to look like, but that's interesting. It looked like, if you go by the DC Nation panel, there was a panel with Red Robin, there was a panel with Batwoman, then there was a panel with Batman and Robin. So it looks like, I'm guessing, there's Robin, but you could clearly see that he was swinging with somebody, which I'm assuming was Batman. So that would lead me to believe that there's a Red Robin book, a Batwoman style book, which it might just be Batwoman. I'm assuming that's the Greg Rucka book.
And I'm assuming it's going to be questioning with her and all that, and maybe even Barbara.
Maybe. I don't know, but we'll see. I have my own theories right now where I think Barbara already is. But that's, and then Batman and Robin. When he was talking about Oracle, I'm torn for the same reasons. I think Oracle has been so well developed, but I'm wondering if maybe what we're seeing is her temporarily revisiting that role in a way that you said, Jim. What if it's technology-based that she's able to do and move around the way that she used to? What if I'm wondering if we're already seeing Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon teaming up again.
Yeah.
Is that what we're already seeing? I don't know.
I don't know. That'd be nice. I'd like to, you know what?
For a year?
Yeah, see, and here's the thing. And earlier in this episode said how I want to see Barbara in the chair and how she'll be the hero. And as I'm saying,
what if she's Flamebird?
Yeah, I know. Like that'd be kind of cool to see how it happened.
The way the two play off each other. Look at the way Nightwing and Flamebird are playing off each other, though. Are we already seeing it, and we're just? I don't know.
And
I'm like I said,
okay.
I might be getting really excited for it, which is why I'm more sold on it now than I'm not saying it has to be the case, but I'm wondering.
I got a really crazy thought just popped in my head, and I'm fully going to admit that this is a crazy thought.
Okay. I think wait, just because you're saying that too, I think my theory on Nightwing and Flamebird was a crazy thought too.
Okay.
So I'm going to go off of that right now, but it's just one of those things that...
If that's Dick Grayson as Nightwing,
okay,
we've known him to hang out with an alien female with superpowers and who has fiery red hair and...
Starfire.
Yeah. What if she's Flamebird?
Interesting.
And I'm trying to remember the images we saw that she had. Well, her mask...
Skin tone.
Yeah, her skin tone was off. But also her mask did have yellowish eyes covering her face.
Yeah, I don't know. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't. It's like going on with saying that that's Barbara and Dick. I don't think that's the case. I think she's her own person. But what if that's the deal? I don't know.
Yeah, another interesting thing is we were talking about that too, just because I'm looking back over the Supergirl issue, just to see Nightwing and Flamebird again, just for that same reason. And yeah, we do see the power in the eyes. But that could be from the flame powers as well,
right?
Too,
Yeah,
so I don't know that necessarily means anything. And the skin tone's clearly not
right.
But look at, they look like bat cuffs almost off to the side, dude. Like a definite bat reference with Flamebird. Yeah. It looks like her old, like a red version of her old Batgirl outfit too. So I don't know. I'm just, and I could clearly be diving from that. Oh,
that would be cool.
That would be very cool, and I think that's why I'm so excited. Even though I like the mystery, and that's a lot of my excitement right now. Is I like the mystery. I'm not 100% sold on anything. It's a wacky idea, so I don't know that your idea is any wackier than mine is because we're just speculating at this point. So it's kind of fun. I don't care if I'm completely swerved. It's two completely different people. I could care less. I'm having fun trying to figure out the mystery. The one cool thing that we didn't mention in that segment, Supergirl's headband. You didn't read, I'm assuming, Supergirl back when we read Crisis. Remember she used to wear the red headband?
Yeah.
I love that they might be reintroducing that as Zor-El's headband.
Yeah.
That was to me kind of an interesting little twist. He was talking a lot about, and I read Superman all through this era and enjoyed it. Clark is Gangbuster. Matrix is Supergirl, who I liked so much that I read the Peter David run, which was brilliant. Really great run of Supergirl with Matrix as Supergirl. I agree with him. I'm worried about Lois and Clark being split, but I'm not that worried about it. I don't think they would do that either. I'm with him. It doesn't fit the character of the characters, so I'm worried about it just from a fan standpoint that I want to protect them. And you know how we speculate on possibilities. It's a possibility, but I'm with him that it's remote.
I think just how Clark was raised, he wouldn't allow a divorce to happen. And when I mean allow, I don't mean like force her to stay in a marriage that, doesn't work. I mean, he would go that extra step to keep the marriage alive. Like with Mary Jane and Spider-Man, they both allowed the marriage to end. Clark would not let it. He would do that extra step that's required to keep them together.
Mary Jane and Spider-Man didn't so much allow it to end. They had no... Did you read that story?
No.
Okay. That's oversimplifying. They did not allow... They were kind of forced in a very brutal choice. So, that wasn't really something they had an option with.
Oh, okay.
So it was... I don't want to say it here because we're not spoiling our Marvel book, but I read it, and it wasn't... It's not that simple.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and I'll tell you after we're done if you want to know, but I don't want to spoil it on here because, they'll expect us to spoil DC stuff, not Marvel stuff, so I'm not going to do that.
Let's blow Marvel stuff.
Well, I'm sorry, somebody who might read Spider-Man, though, in trade, maybe, didn't read that, and they don't want to know this way, so I won't do that. I like that he was talking about how Superman became his Hawkman.
We can flip a coin. We can flip a coin, Good side, we don't spoil it. Bad side, we spoil it.
No. Which way did it come up, though? I'm curious.
Bad side.
Well, I said I would tell you afterwards, so
okay.
That'll be your bad side. I'll give it to you. I like that he commented on Superman. That's kind of what Hawkman became to me. Batman's always my guy, but Hawkman was one of these characters that I just latched onto and thought was really cool. There's been plenty of times where Superman's been my There's a lot of characters that have been my Hawkman, if you want to go on that theory. That was a cool explanation of it. Did you read that stuff when Lex Luthor's clone was posing as his son? Well, it wasn't his clone. He used a clone body.
Yeah,
it was
sporadically
okay.
of... I'd get
flowing red hair.
Yeah, and then he starts losing the hair, and But that was right before. That was during the Doomsday time.
Yeah, it was after. It was post Doomsday.
Yeah,
that he really took major prominence and kind of took over with Team Luthor and stuff like that. It was interesting.
Yeah.
So I liked that whole era. I really did. It was a fun era. It's cool comments.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Donnie Shaw over here. How's everything going? I was just listening to your latest episode. You were talking about anthology comics and how much they usually start off well and then they kind of hit the crapper and get canceled, when they're using them as a steady title. Well, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. If you have an anthology title that deals with the same characters, in a sense, like take for instance, like the Batman family. If they bring back the Batman family, you could do Robin stories, spoiler stories, Oracle stories, Huntress stories, even the Legion of Heroes stories. The Outsider stories. The potential is really endless. You could go Batwoman, The Question, even Ragman, and the Creeper. I don't know. Is the Creeper? He used to be Gotham. I don't know. Is he Gotham or Metropolis? I'm not sure. Anyway, but I think those kind of anthologies sell a lot better instead of something like I remember when they tried to bring back Marvel Comics Present, where it was just, it was a story about Vindicator, and then there was another story about Hellcat, and then there was another story about, this gargoyle, say, and this one and that one, where you don't get that feeling of unity. Whereas if you did an anthology title about, like I said, like the Batman family, where you could even do the Gotham PD stories in there, it gives you more of a feeling of a contained universe, in a sense, like, all these people are from Gotham, so we could put this in there, and I think when you do anthologies, when you're dealing with superhero comics, and you go that route, that I can guarantee you that you'll get like at least a year run on, if they brought back like Superman family and Batman family and things like that. Whereas, if you just had like a DC Comics type of thing, where it was just stories of characters they don't really use that often, but are from all different points of the universe, the reader is not going to spend $2.99, $3.99 if they're only into that one story, whereas you're hitting a target audience going the other route. Well, that's just my 2 cents. And so you can see where I agree and disagree. See what I'm saying? And Jim, stop singing Sinatra. I know you're going to New York. I'm very happy you're going to New York. I can't wait to meet you both in person. I will be there on Saturday. But speaking for all Italian-American citizens across the country, stop singing Sinatra. You have a cease and desist, or you're going to swim with the fishes, as they say. All right, guys. That was a joke, by the way. Don't call it cops. All right. Take it easy, guys.
Hey, Paisan, calm down a little bit there, buddy. Yeah, I'm Italian, dude. So, on behalf of Italian Americans, okay, that's me.
Well, I think he's trying to say that you're embarrassing Italian Americans.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you on. But...
Donnie and I are a lot in sync.
Yeah,
I'm not Italian, and I'm embarrassed for him. That was funny. Donnie's from the Reality Wasted podcast. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, it's a wonderful podcast. Actually, that's one of those that are on my queue. So yeah. It's probably the most sincere I play games a lot listening to podcasts now. I got this gaming chair where it's got an output for MP3 players. So I'll go between my Sirius satellite radio and my iPod, and I'll play certain games with the volume off. Because I like to play role-playing games, but the nice part about a lot of those is they have text. So what I will do is I will actually turn off the volume on the television and play those games, level up my characters and stuff like that, which often can get boring. Like, Final Fantasy, I like to play those type of games, but really leveling the characters so you're effective can be dull. But when I'm listening to podcasts and my Sirius radio, it's fun. Because I'm listening to stuff that I really enjoy, and I'm doing this, like, mundane kind of task and doing it that way. I do the same thing with playing City of Heroes. I've been on City of Heroes a decent amount over break and been enjoying that, so it's been fun. He's talking about those anthologies, and I think you and I agree, Donnie, a lot more than you think. And some of your arguments are some of the reasons why I think that they don't tend to work. I want to see them. And that's the funny part is, like, when Donnie was saying the Bat Family one, he was going through all the reasons why it'd be a great anthology. I think the problem is, Donnie, you and I are totally in sync, but I don't think a majority of the public agrees with us. I want to see it. There's the part of me that's the diehard fan that would like to see the anthology, and I agree with him. A Bat Family anthology that is focused on Batman is going to do better than a DC Universe anthology. I think it'll sell better because you'll get the Batman fan audience that'll go in there. Here's the problem, though. Unless you make it in continuity, they tend to tank because of budgets. You're talking about a $3.99 book, like he's saying. A year run, typically if the book's only going to have a year run, it's because it's not doing well. If it's doing well, it's going more than a year. It's going to be ongoing because, with an anthology, you have a lot of options. I would love to see them try it. I think the problem is they need to do it in such a way where it's not a $3.99 book. It needs to be the size of a regular monthly book. It needs to cost as much. I would even argue, like, those Johnny DC titles. Why can't they do an anthology book that's on that paper? Those books are what, $225?
Yeah.
So if they think it's going to be a lesser selling title or something that they want to experiment with, why not release it on that kind of paper? Put it on a $225, and if we're driving people away because of the price point, put it on that kind of paper, maybe make it a $2.99 book with more pages on that paper. Would you buy that?
See, I would buy it either way, but see, I'm a bad person to ask because I would buy it either way.
I would buy the $3.99 book on the high quality paper.
Here's the thing: I don't think we're going to get more people reading if we put it on the cheaper paper. I don't think, Do
you think it's price point that's driving people away?
I think it's combination price point, combination continuity. Where does this anthology book? If it's a bad anthology book, okay, is it post or pre RIP, or is it this? Is it that? That's the type of stuff.
The stories need to matter in continuity, I think.
That's what I think, and that's where the anthology books run into the problem, where who do they fit in? Or who is it that's in the anthology book? If it's a bunch of C and D list characters, that I think people are, I don't want to read that. I only want to read the big names.
The lead story's I agree with him on, I think family-themed anthologies would work much better. The lead story's got to have a rock-solid creative team with a story that matters. A can't-miss story. Then you can have fun with some of the other stories in the book, I think. That'd be my thought. The way to make an anthology work, you've got to have a creative team that are going to make people go, okay, I want to read this because of the creative team and the character they're working on. And that story, I think you can get away with. I think that story needs to be in continuity and have a drastic importance to what's going on right now. And then I think with the rest of the stories, that's where you can do some character development with some other creative teams on some of the characters that just what he's mentioning. So I think that's how you can do it. But I think the lead story's got if he goes back to Marvel Comics Presents, that worked when Wolverine was going through Weapon X. That was a high-end story. That sold well.
Yeah.
But the story, the thing starts to tank, when you don't have those lead stories that matter. So you've got to make sure your lead story every month has to matter and has to be the draw and the hook. At $3.99, I think that's a hard sell, though, nowadays. I think. I'd love to see them try it. I'd love to be wrong, and I hope I am. I'd love to see them do it. I'm wrong, and I get that book, because I want that. So he and I are totally in sync. I do agree with his concept, though, that I think a Superman anthology would work better. Part of the problem, though, is, and I guess that's where my frustration is, I like to see some of the characters that are outside of the Bat family, outside of the Superman family, be explored. So I guess I would like a DC Universe I guess I would like a DC Comics Presents. Where it is all those characters with a lead off of a high-end character as the hook to draw people in, but really exploring some out there, like Creeper. I agree with him. It's more of you can get away with Creeper in the Gotham books. So that would work for me, like Jack Ryder. But I mean, I think there's characters outside of that, like your Manhunter, where you could have an Draco do a serialized Manhunter story in there every so often. You could have, just a lot of these, great creators that are creating interesting characters that, milestone characters, put them in there. You could put, not saying, you could do little stories here and there spotlighting people. I don't know, it'd be kind of fun. So, I don't know. It'd be kind of, I agree with his theory, though, that a Bat Family anthology would sell longer. But a year run of something, unless they issue it at the beginning as a 12-issue limited series, I think that would sell better.
Yeah.
Maybe.
See, here's the thing with that. I could see people saying, well, if they're going to do a 12-issue limited series, I'll just wait for the trade.
Yeah.
So then they're not going to pick it up. It looked interesting, but I'll pick it up and trade.
Unless it matters in continuity.
Yeah.
And you're currently reading the monthly books, you're going to want to follow the continuity into there. It's...
Yeah, and then, of course, when you get that, they're like, oh, they're just trying to exploit us to get us more money out of us. It's a greedy business.
Because the showcase,
so
back when Nightfall was going on, I remember they were running a showcase series back then, which is an anthology title I liked. And that title did a couple issues crossed over into Nightfall, for example. There were issues of that had short stories that tied into Starman. So, they were written by Robinson. So, I mean, they were good stories that mattered. So that's, I don't know. I'm very torn on that. So I'm glad he mentioned it. It's interesting. Definitely check out the Reality Wasted podcast. And thanks so much, Donnie. And Jim, thank you for singing. Yeah, apparently Italian Americans thank you too.
I know. Hey,
your brothers.
Hey.
Your brothers.
Yeah, and I'm paisans. What the heck, man?
I was laughing when he said that because I literally turned to you and I said, wait a minute, you're Italian American. Donnie, we are looking forward to seeing you in New York as well. Cool. So.
Hi, Sean. It's Mom. I don't have anything to rant and rave about. I was just every now and then I go online to see your Raging Bullet and saw that you have voicemail. I thought, I'm going to leave him a message. That's all. I love you and talk to you soon. Bye.
I totally did not expect that.
That's cool.
I looked and I saw it was like this 19-second one. I'm like, who's that from? I'm like, who gets their comments in a 19 seconds?
And how appropriate it was, considering we just were talking about what influence she has on your comic book collection. And they were like, oh, what's this? Like, oh my God, that's Mom.
Imagine my surprise. That was very cool. It was kind of an appropriate one to end off on this episode. We do have some more voicemails, which Jim and I are going to be sharing on our next show. So we've got a lot of comments from you guys. Keep them coming. We love having you a part of the show.
Hole in a donut.
Jim, we want to remind everyone that we're going to be at the New York Comic Con February 6th to the 8th, 2009. There's a handy link on the top of RagingBullets.com that you can go ahead and click on and join us at that one. Please check it out. We're going to be part of the podcast arena.
Dun, 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 dun.
And Jim, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember to check out DCBService.com this week for the brand new books and discounts.
Woohoo!
I know, I'm really excited for that. It's actually one of my favorite things to do is to see, what's coming out new and what am I going to save a whole... New books excite me because they always have that really cool, extensive discount, but also the collected editions, like Absolute for Tomorrow last month.
Yeah.
Did you order that?
Oh, yeah. I ordered that one, and I couldn't pass
You can't beat that.
Yeah, you can't beat the savings and just some of the hardcovers that are coming out, and I'm getting more of those now because I'm getting...
Well, yeah, the price discount on those, it makes hardcovers
Hardcovers like the price of a trade. Come on. I'm like, I can't pass that up now.
Like JSA, I'm getting all those hardcovers. Yeah. Wonder Woman's another book that I'm collecting in hardcover. There's a Batman. I collected R.I.P. and Heart of Hush, both of those in hardcover. So I'm rebuying a lot of these things.
Everything,
that I'm really enjoying. Like the Superman one, I picked up Brainiac, but the cost, I'm like, well, okay, I'm saving a lot now. I can. That's funny. All I'm saving, I'm putting back into these collected editions. So it's kind of funny. I want to remind everyone that our in-stock trades book of the month for January is chosen by Mike Sims. Flash Rogues, written by Jeff Johns, art by Scott Collins and Brian Boland. Keystone City is on the brink of destruction again. Only the Flash can save it. Flash the Rogues, containing the Flash 177 to 181. But can he handle Captain Cold and the Mirror Master as well? Throw the Plunderer, Gorilla Grodd, and the Pied Piper into the mix, and it's a recipe for disaster. Regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. Episode 150, Jim. It's epic. It's big. Absolute Batman, The Long Halloween. Well, just Long Halloween. You can have the trade, the absolute, whatever. You can have single issues, whatever you've got. If you don't have Long Halloween, it's a 13-issue miniseries, which really is 15 issues, written by Jeff Loeb, Tim Sales from 1996. It ran for a year. This one is the inspiration for a lot of the stuff in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Regularly $75 for the absolute, 37% off, only $47.25. If you want to go the trade paperback route, which has the same story in it, regularly $19.95, 37% off, only $12.57. InStockTrades.com offers free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Has tons of collected editions in stock and ready to ship. Thank you for supporting us, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. I'm very excited to talk this. I grabbed my absolute, I read it in 2 days. And I just, the story, did you have a chance to even start reading it yet?
I haven't had a chance to start reading it now. So
I'm curious to see, and please don't tell me in between, how you enjoyed this one. Because this one is it's one of those stories, Carmine Falcone's in it, the Maroney family's in it. But then there's a serial killer story going through the whole entire thing that fits in. Almost every major Batman villain appears in some capacity. It's very much a year one style story. It takes place, it's spiritually the sequel almost to Frank Miller's Year One. You know, in the sense that it continues right where, because the themes were actually chosen from some of Miller's Year One stories. So this is one that, it's epic, it's big, it's huge. Oof.
Damn, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a great read. I chose it for a reason. Next week, Jim and I are going to be finishing up our JLA JSA look. This one was a lot bigger than we expected. And we decided with it being so close to the release of the new issues that we were going to continue. So next week it'll be JSA 21 and 22. And the two issues, what issues were they of JLA?
27 and 28.
27, 28, okay, because you did the lead notes on those. So I'm excited for those issues to read those and kind of delve into them a little bit more. These are two great team books.
I know. It's some good times.
We'll also continue with some listener voicemails, some more speeding bullets. The week after that will be the Raging Oscars episode. So we're only going to delay that 1 week just because our JLA JSA episode wound up being a lot bigger than we expected. Us?
Oh, well, surprise.
Well, there's a lot of themes, though. I think this Kingdom storyline is one that really I wanted to sink our teeth into, and I'm glad we're doing that. I think we'll talk a little bit more Trinity during Speeding Bullets, too, because I want to talk a little bit more in depth about what I'm enjoying so much about that series, because we're not giving that one enough coverage, and I'd like to talk about it some more. Maybe I'm going to do some books in Speeding Bullets that I haven't chatted about in a while. So it's fun. I'm excited for next week's show. We haven't even finished yet. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Jim?
Yes?
Tell us a story.
Well, let me tell you another story. Yeah, it's time for Sensei Whatnot's Vegas vacation. They always say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, fortunately for y'all, I'm a bit of a blabbermouth, so I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you one of the stories. There's a couple that aren't really PG, and I know we have a lot of people who play this out loud for their little children to listen to.
What were you doing in Vegas that wasn't really PG?
Hey, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas sometimes, and this is one of those. Those are those stories that I'm not going to share. But the one I am going to share is completely clean. So if you're playing this out loud...
Who are you there with?
Well, I went with my mom and dad and my sister Mary.
This is a family vacation?
This is a family vacation.
And there's story... knowing your family like I do, and I mean this in an intense compliment to your family and how high I think of your family. What in the... you got to tell me after this.
Afterwards, I'll tell you, yeah.
Okay,
and anybody... yeah, I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay. Wow.
Well, when I tell you, you'll hear why I can't really share the story, open like this.
Okay.
Or I could, but I'd really be chopping it to pieces.
There's no way we could... Okay. Because I'm fascinated.
Well, see, I probably could, but I'd have to really chop up... I wouldn't chop it up. I'd have to choose my words carefully.
Can't we just put a disclaimer?
Well, I don't want people not to listen, because the one story is really funny and is very family-friendly.
Then why don't we tell the one story, and then afterwards we'll put a disclaimer. This is the part where you want to turn off your iPod.
Okay. Actually, we can probably do that, then.
Yeah. Because I'm sure, now, I want to hear it. I'm sure there's other people that do.
Okay.
So let's go with it. Go with story number one.
Well, here's the story number one that is 100% family-friendly, so if you're playing this out loud, do not worry about shutting it off or turning the volume down or any of that stuff.
That's fair.
Okay, so I'm sitting there, and I was gambling in the... Paris casino, and I was having, pretty bad time. I got
the way you were building that too. I'm like, oh, dude, won some money or something. Bad time. You were very upbeat about the story. I'm like, dude, won. I'm like, yeah.
No, I got this trip. I got rocked so bad. It was like a scene from the Vegas Vacation, the National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation. I had a bad run. But I was sitting there and just got done with the one bad run, and I was sitting in a machine. I look across the casino, and guess who I see? I see Gail Simone sitting in a machine. I'm like, holy crap, that's Gail. So I got up right from where I was, ran across the casino like an idiot, show up to the machine where Gail is sitting.
I so totally see where this is going.
And I go, Gail, how's it going, eh? And the lady looks up from her machine, and I think to myself, wow, that's not Gail. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of like, she's staring at me with this blank look. I'm like, wow, you're not Gail Simone. No response from her. So I was like, okay, Jim, just start going. I'm like, really starting to disturb you. You look like someone I know, and still no response from this lady. And that's when it dawns on me, she doesn't even speak English. So I'm like, oh, swell, because the whole weekend we were completely surrounded by people from Europe, Asia, you name it. All
I thought you were going to tell me you gave her a heart attack.
No, I hope not. So I'm sitting there looking at this lady's just, obviously this, non-lady, can't imagine what's going through her head. She's got some crazy American run up to her, starts blabbering something, and so I just like, okay, what's the only word she'll probably understand? I give her my biggest grin. I go, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I leave Red Casino really quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Put a little disclaimer on here. This is Jim's second story.
Now coming up to my second story.
I'm actually glad you did that, though, because we get a lot of people that comment on the fact that this is a clean podcast. But we've done like Vertigo episodes before. We put a disclaimer on it before that this is going to be a little off our beaten path.
Right.
So this is going to be at the very end of the show. So we can actually put a little disclaimer on here. This is a part that's not appropriate for the little ones. Is that what we're going to say?
Yeah, it's not appropriate for the little ones.
And I don't know how we could leave them with a cliffhanger saying, wow, we got this great story, but we're not going to tell you. I want to know what this is.
Okay. Well, this is a multiple part story of different experiences I had in Vegas this past time. I'm going to start off with the calmest and tamest one of them all, I think. I was sitting at the hotel. We stayed at the Flamingo, which is a beautiful hotel, great casino, sitting there. And, some nice, cute little young lady is sitting next to me at the machine. And she starts, just carrying up a conversation with me. And nice, friendly. I'm like, oh, okay. Not thinking anything of it. And, just a little chit-chat back and forth and all that stuff. And, about after a couple of minutes, oh, where are you from? Vegas. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I'm like, oh, you're from Vegas. You're a local. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Young female hanging out at the casino, just chit-chatting, get strangers come in and talk to them. And I'm not thinking anything of this, And then finally about, a couple of minutes later, I get up. I'm like, oh, okay, and I leave, and I go, wish her a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, not thinking of, and I'm sitting at the dice table, and that's when it dawned on me. She wasn't just a nice young lady. She was a nice young working lady. Completely over my head. And I'm thinking, no, and I was dawning and I couldn't figure it out. So finally I was like, you know what? I gotta know, So I get up and I start to head back over. Now, the story isn't as bad as you're thinking, because I know you're laughing thinking what happened. As I go over there...
I think this is really funny.
Now, either she's a nice young lady who has, a definite set type where she goes for the middle-aged, little bit frumpy, overweight kind of guys, or she was a professional, because I saw her flirting with another guy who looked a lot like me, So I guess I have loser tattooed on my forehead, or desperate, or out of town,
or
something.
Why are you so down on yourself? Maybe you're her type.
I don't know.
Was there money exchanged?
I never saw money being exchanged.
They wouldn't be publicly anyway.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it publicly, but, I was just, kind of shocked, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, second part of the story. Now, I'm in another casino.
Maybe she recognized you from the website.
Maybe she did. Maybe she was a super fan, and she was just nervous. I don't know. It could be, or
could be. Wait, those Prince photos of you look pretty snazzy.
Yeah. It could be the whatnot machismo. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so then I'm in another casino. I was in the Excalibur casino. The following day, or and just similar situation. And
same girl?
No, different girl.
Okay.
But same profession. Approaching me and talking, and she started up the exact same way. Oh, where are you from? Oh, you here on business work? And I'm just like, and this one, it dawned on me sooner. I'm like, man, and I'm just like, what the heck is it about me? So I was the.
I'm waiting for the emails next week. Dear Sean and Jim, not every female comic fan is a prostitute.
I know, I'm going to get that one.
I'm going to see the website. Wasn't sure how to say, hi, Jim, I listened to the show.
Oh, God.
I recognized you from the Where's What Not Now photos. That wouldn't happen, but I think that would be really funny.
Yeah. And, and it was funny because, as soon as I realized,
that would be funny, though, if that was the case.
If that's the truth, that'd be hysterical, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't either.
Yeah. But
I think it would be funny.
Yeah. So then as I'm sitting there talking to the second young lady, it never dawned on me to actually try to solicit her services. I'm like, that's not my style. But I was thinking,
what
I'm
were
like,
they saying to you though? What was
what was
the line?
It wasn't a line really. It was just initial, just like, and it's funny. It's just friendly banter, just friendly conversation. And the thing with her, again, with the second one, the same clue for me with this one was when she said she was a local. She was a local from Vegas. She asked me where I was from. And I'm like, oh, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and all that. And I made some, stupid comments about how bad the Browns are doing. And she chuckled at my really bad joke, even though she had that look on her face like she had no idea, that what, I was talking about. And then asked her where she was from. She said, as soon as I heard she was from Vegas, I'm looking at her. Okay, she was both very attractive women. So if they are actually people who know me, I'm telling you, I'm giving you a compliment. I think you're really good looking, and that's part of the reason I'm thinking they're professionals, because there's no way in hell these girls would want to, one, talk to me, much less anything else. So I'm kind of giving them credit for that. But and then as soon as she said she was a local, I started looking. She was dressed kind of nicely, hanging out at the Excalibur Casino on, it was, I think, a Wednesday night or something like that. So it wasn't even like the weekend. I'm like, and I just say it was funny because I had this look. I'm like, oh, and that's when I realized, and I was like, well, you have a nice day. And I just kind of like cut her off mid-sentence, and part of me felt bad because I was being rude to her. But as soon as I realized, why she was talking to me, I was like, I just got to go now. I just got to leave.
I love that you think it's so out of the realm of possibility, though, that an attractive female would like you. I'm adult, and my wife's hot. I'm adult. I would have to probably analyze her for hours why she's with me, but it is possible, dude. You're a likable fellow. You really are.
Yeah. So
I actually said something nice about you.
I know. You're gonna edit that part out.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now Okay. Now another story going on along, and this one is where, to be honest, I could have cleaned up those two stories. Is this one still
prostitute related?
Well, kind of.
Okay.
Well, it's questionable.
Now, I've been in Vegas multiple times.
Yeah.
I've never had this. Well, I wear a wedding ring. But wait, that's not usually an indicator.
That wouldn't stop anybody.
Yeah, actually, dude, I gotta say, I've never been approached like that in Vegas.
Yeah. So yeah. So who knows?
Were you alone at the table at the time? Oh, okay.
Well, no, I wasn't at I was at the one slot machines both times.
Well, see, I've been at the slot machines.
Yeah, sitting at a slot machine by myself. Yeah. So then, a couple more stories, and it is funny. I probably could have very easily told those in the clean section, and not have to worry about it. But I didn't want to,
That's fine.
I don't want to offend anybody. Now, the next couple stories, I'm going to give a warning to our female listeners. You may be offended by this. So I'm just giving it, I'm not trying to, but I'm just relating true factual information that I saw, and in a way that, well, I'm just going to tell the story. But I don't want to insult it. I've insulted our female listeners enough. I don't want to do it anymore.
So giving a disclaimer, you may say things that would be...
that they may take offensive, but I don't intend it.
You're trying to be sensitive.
I don't intend it to be insultive, but it may be. You may take it that way.
And you're trying to be... Well, that's respectful.
I'm trying to,
Okay.
But, so I was sitting there at the dice table, and across the table, there was a young lady who... I don't know if she was a professional or if she was just someone in Vegas wanting to have fun. And you get both of those. And she was wearing a very revealing, low-cut outfit, and she God had blessed her or plastic surgery had blessed her. I don't know which was the case, but she had a very well endowed chest, and it was very nice. And so now with the dice table, this is where I said insulting. I don't want to be insulting, but now with if you've ever played dice, a lot of times if you're the shooter, you have to lean over to reach and grab the dice. Now imagine low cut, revealing outfit, well endowed, leaning over. Imagine where Jim's eyes were every single time she did this. Fully admit I was doing it. Fully admit all the guys on my end of the table were doing it.
Are you saying that you think this one might be a prostitute too?
I don't think so.
Because I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't think shooting.
Well, I see. That's the thing. That's why I don't. I think she was just there, to have fun. Because I told this story to my sister, and she's like, hey, do you think she was a professional? I'm like, I don't think so. This one, I had the feeling it was just someone in Vegas wanting to have fun. Well, hold on. So every time she'd bend over, all the guys at our end would look. Now, when she'd look up, when she'd reach her dice, most of the guys would turn away. Now, there was one, me, who didn't actually turn away either. I don't know if it was.
Which is unusual. You're known for your tact.
Right, I know. And she not only did she catch me looking at her, she'd give me a little quick wink, every single time she caught me looking at her.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there, then by the end there, she'd catch me looking, she'd give me a wink, I'd give her a salute back saying, thank you for the view.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just sharing here. Now, part of the...
Is this it?
No, there's a little bit more with her. Now... The other funny thing was all the, my end of the table had a lot of guys, a couple older guys. We were making bets for her. She would, we just kept throwing money at her to keep her shooting. We would, there's different bets you can do, like with the bet on the line while we were betting her odds. Oh, hey, give the shooter a hard 6 for the shooter, hard 8, and throwing out all this money at her. And we're all just laughing because we all knew we were doing it just to keep her bending over and, reaching for the dice because we were all enjoying the view, so... Yeah, a little bit of piggish there.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know what would make you think that she was a professional.
I don't know, and that's the thing. That's why I
think she was a girl having fun.
Yeah, I think she was a girl having fun, not and actually
and having a little flirtatious fun with you,
right?
Because you were obviously kind of playing along and having fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So,
so you probably found it cute.
Yeah,
to a certain extent. Or she went back to her room and said, "You should see the perverts at the table."
Creeps. She go back and take the
which is probably more likely.
Shower,
Which is probably more likely what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
she was having fun.
Yeah, I think she was having fun.
Funny.
I think she was just probably there. She was on there on vacation, being a little bit wild, letting her hair down. So that's cool. We had fun. All
right.
This here, then a couple other interesting circumstances. I wanted to check out checking out the different sites and the scenes. And I ran into a young lady, very attractive, extremely attractive. Once again, another one who had all the nice curves. Sometimes you get them nice curves built just right. And she had a very interesting T-shirt on. And I was scrambling for my camera to get a picture of it, and unfortunately, she didn't even slow down, and she kept going, so I couldn't get it. And by the time I get it, I didn't want to run after her and say, "Excuse me, can I take a picture of you in your shirt?" And you're like, "What's the shirt say?" Well, the shirt said, "Sorry, boys, I eat pussy."
What?
Yes. Black shirt, rhinestone studded, so it really just reflected the light. I saw it, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, what the hell was that shirt? And I, didn't get a good picture of it, unfortunately. I couldn't get a picture
She's a couple possibilities there. Either she really was, which is fine, a lesbian, and that's her cup of tea, and that's cool. No big deal there. Or she's a single straight girl who just wanted to go to Vegas and have fun and didn't want to wind up like the girl at your craps table.
Exactly. That could be. Man,
leave me alone. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Jim's misadventures in Vegas. I still love the fact that you feel that that you're not you have like a nice personality.
Well, yeah, I do have a nice.
Talk to you. You're definitely out of the two of us. You're definitely the more charming and endearing one. I'm the bastard of the podcast. So it is kind of funny that.
Yeah. Well. A previous encounter in Vegas, where it wasn't me. This was like a couple years ago. It was actually my first Vegas vacation. that I had a run in. Well, had interesting dealings with professional ladies. That that's why I really think those two were professionals.
I have been to Vegas multiple times. I've had other than flyers on the street and that type of thing, I've had no dealings at all. So it's interesting.
Well, you want me to tell you that other story?
It's your instant. Well, I don't know. We got a lot of time at this point.
Okay, we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, that'll be another. We could probably go on for hours with Jim's Vegas adventures. But, yeah, this is probably good enough for this particular show.
Yeah. I had the one time where I saw two people having sex. Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, it was a previous Vegas trip.
Where are you staying? Where are you staying?
That one actually occurred. Luxor.
Really?
Yeah, right on the casino floor. They were sitting.
What?
In the high price slots. I saw a guy and a girl sitting on the guy's lap, and they were just like sitting there, flirtatious. And I was kind of watching because I was waiting for security to come and escort them out. It was like 2-3 in the morning, and then they stop. There's a little kissing and flirting around, and and get up, and I see her get up, straighten out her skirt, and I see him do the zip, and I'm like, holy crap! I just saw those two have sex. Cool. All
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's enough of Jim's storytelling for right now.
You sure you don't want any more bedtime stories?
No, I've gone to Vegas multiple times. It's been a blast. I've thoroughly enjoyed Vegas. Never had any of that nonsense. I've seen little flyers and stuff like that. I'm not saying I'm looking for that kind of nonsense either. I think it's very entertaining because it totally fits you that this type of stuff would happen on your misadventures. I think it's part of the reason why we have so much eventful stuff happen on our road trips. It's you. You're clearly the problem.
I'm the shit magnet, okay? Let's be honest here.
All right. We will see you next week on that note.
Bye.